I'm live. I believe I'm live anyway. Now everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey everybody, Cantonese Cat here. I just woke up from a nap 15 minutes ago. Probably should schedule this at like 6 or something, but it's here we are. Got myself the beverages that I need, relieved myself from any potential bodily needs at the litter box, and we are here. I am looking at the indexes. So here's how it's going to flow. We look at the indexes here today. I'm going to look at ARK fund, look at the quantum ETF, and I'm going to take a peek at Bitcoin as well. I had a live stream yesterday, a little bit of an impromptu live stream to talk about Bitcoin and talk about altcoins, talk about everything else. Obviously, things have changed, but if you're interested in those kind of things, please refer back to the stream from yesterday. And that it hasn't really been changed all that much. So, and on top of that, I got about 15, 20 different requests. I'm also going to go through Bitcoin miners here as well. So, without further ado, here we go. Got the SPX here. Someone's asking me about SPX. Sometimes I usually chart either SPY or SPX. A lot of people get really scared right here. Just think that we're at the top because we've been going up nonstop for about 2 years. That's not really true. I mean, we've got a lot of various corrections along the way, including this one here from August all the way to October 2023. It was extremely brutal. Right, SPX went all the way from like 4,600 all the way down to maybe around 4,100 or so. That was pretty brutal. It was more than 10% correction. A lot of people also got scared about this candle here. This is one of those things I'm like, don't worry about bearish engulfing candles, because if you worry about bearish engulfing candle, you would end up selling the all your index funds, all your investments down here below at around 5,000. Then you would have missed a pretty tremendous amount of gain, about what, like 16% or something like that, just around since April 2024, right? That's why I'm saying, like, sometimes bearish engulfing candles during a strong bull trend doesn't always work out, right? And on top of that, now here we are. We've gotten a red candle here in December. A lot of people were expecting a centers rally, and you end up getting a pretty downtrend here. And then also so far for the first week and a half, 2 weeks in January has also been down. So a lot of people are starting to get worried about whether or not this is the top, because we're not getting the usual center rally that we usually get, right? And I'm here to tell you that nobody knows, because it's a bull market, and bull market can keep on going a lot stronger for a lot longer, and you can have these kind of 10% correction here and there that can be extremely brutal. We're experiencing a 10% correction right now from the top right there, which is around 6,100 or so. Could it go all the way down to a lot further? I can't even do math right now because I just woke up. Oh man. Okay, let's take a look at the price range over here from top all the way down here. So you already have closer to about a 5% correction. Would it be potential for it to go down another 5% and have about a 10% correction? Yeah, maybe. And I also see some posts on X that didn't really make any sense to me at all. Like, somebody said, oh, the correction hasn't even started yet. That's why you don't know how bad it's going to be. Well, if the correction hasn't even started yet, then why the heck are you talking about it? It doesn't even have to it doesn't even have to start now. It could start months from now. This is just maybe like a 5% pullback. That's always entirely a possibility, right? On the way up ever since the Great Financial Crisis. By the way, the Great Financial Crisis happened because banks were over leveraged, because housing were over leveraged. A lot of people are taking loans to get like their third or fourth house that they can't afford. It's not really happening here. And ever since the Great Financial Crisis, something significant has happened. This is why things have gone this exponentially up a lot higher ever since that, because banks can't fail. This is something that's actually very remarkable. Like, I think that's big part of the reason why the market's rallied for like the last 15 years, because big banks can't fail. And it's getting us to the point that the S&P 500 is a lot higher now. And you can see that I have a Gann chart here. You can see that it's been doing pretty well ever since the bottom of the great financial crisis. I can see that each one of these arcs here either serve as pretty decent support or resistance. Here this arc here was both resistance and support. Here this arc here was resistance and back tested support almost perfectly. Here it pushed through here pretty decent and then ended up back testing it like 3 times. And then you push up against here. Here it pushed for it pretty decently. Got rejected here at the horizontal like it did over here, right? And then just came back test the arc, holding it pretty well, right? And next thing you know, about 3 years later, so far we're pushing through this arc like it's butter. Presumably, if it decided to come back test the arc down here this month, that's not that much further down, is it? And it could even wick underneath of it. I think it's fine, right? So I would say around like on the SPX around 5750 maybe a pretty decent spot for this correction to end, or maybe even goes into February, and that's okay because you might still end up having inside candles number 1, 2, and 3, and build up a rising 3, touch the arc, and then it just goes up higher from there, right? I think I would have felt a little bit different if it was underneath an arc, and it could potentially get stuck in the arc here for like months and months, but this is not the behavior that is exhibiting. So I'm not gonna like worry about a call top here because I just don't have enough to really go by that. On top of that, you also have an RSI trend line here that is broken already on a monthly, right? You've been going up on a little bit of bearish divergence, but it's the indexes. It can go up on bearish divergence for a very long time. And you also broke a little bit of the RSI trend line over here. So, and you're basically just kind of back testing here a little bit. So far, I'm not really seeing any major signs to scream to me saying that, look, we're in trouble here. Greetings, welcome, yeah. I'm not really seeing enough concern here for me to get super worried about this right here. And if I'm wrong, but sometimes you just have to go what the probability tells you, which in this particular case probability tells you that the trend is up. And it's probably going to go up higher over time, no matter how bad a correction is going to be. Now, during a bull market, this is the S&P 500 with the Ichimoku cloud here being shown. And during a bull market, generally it uses the blue line to show it needed to backtest before going up higher, right? You can see the blue line here. This blue line is called Tenkan conversion line, however you want to call it. And so far, it's just not really been that overextended. Like sometimes if it gets a little bit too far, like the bull market here from 2011 through 2015, 2016 or so, you can see that the blue line, sometimes it needed to touch it once, maybe twice here, maybe got close to touching it here. And when it start getting flatter and flatter, it just get exhausted. It has to touch the red line underneath of it, touch it a couple of times, and that was it for the correction, right? And then things just kind of go up a lot higher. Right here, you can be not touching the blue line here for about a year and a half. Here, you can be not touching the blue line here for a year and a half. Here, we already touched it back in August during that yen carry trade thing, whatever that thing is called. We touched it almost perfectly, right? So I would say that a little big correction to touch the Tenkan has already occurred, and we might not need to touch it for a very long time, right? There's just so many things. I look at it weekly here too. There's something that I looked at called the bull market support band. You can have during a bull market, you can have prices that dip underneath of that. That's completely fine. It doesn't mean the bull market ends just because you're dipping underneath the support band. Sometimes you even dip underneath and back as resistance, right? And you can still fail, and that's what got a lot of people really freaked out here back in October, me included, because it looks like it should push through as it's flat, but no, it got rejected, came back down, grabbed more liquidity, and then pushed through, and then just kind of went up from there, right? Here, it also did a very much of a perfect back test here in April 2024. And a lot of people got freaked out about it. Here, it did a very perfect back test around July 2024. A lot of people got freaked out about this too on the morning of August 5th when it dipped underneath, grabbed a lot of liquidity, and it just pushed all the way up afterwards, right? The entire bull market from 2020 all the way to 2021, 2022, it touched the overnight support band number 1, 2, maybe arguably 3, and 4 times, right? And the more it touches over here, that's when it ends up breaking underneath of it. But it touches a few times here. Here it touches a few times. There's really not much, even even if it breaks underneath and starts resistance here, there's still not enough sufficient evidence to call that to be a bear market. Here, same thing. Dip underneath, just went a lot higher, right? Dip underneath, just went a lot higher, right? Perfect back test right there. So as far as I'm concerned, I think the bears are just guessing here, man. I think the bears are just guessing. Hey, Logains, welcome. Yeah. Anyway, talk about the QQQs here. The NASDAQ even looks better. Still a little bit more room for QQ to potentially go down a lot lower if it show it needs to. But same story, right? A lot of people are like, "Oh no, like this is like a double whammy here. You got a big giant, what do you call it, like an inverted hammer, shooting star top kind of thing." These candles are usually pretty scary. A lot of people see it, they're like, "Rah, rah," you know. I just showed you a bearish engulfing candle on the SPY. That's not going to work out here. Here you also have the same bearish engulfing candle here in April. It didn't work out. And next thing you know, you have an engulfing candle. You just kind of go up a lot higher. You can't just base on the stock market on just one candle formation. Although that is a pretty scary candle there. I'm gonna have to agree with you. You know, it does bring some skepticism that maybe we're not gonna do that well initially for the month of January. Maybe we can dip down here a little bit. But one candle does not make a trend, right? Because throughout time, you're also going to have these kinds of shooting star candles that don't mark the top, right? You're just going to have these kind of shooting star candles that don't mark the top or are like completely meaningless, right? So the way I see it is don't just count on just one candle and look at the whole picture. And I'm completely okay if price ends up going down a lot further than I think, because I've been wrong before, right? Here, you already have the QQQ already corrected about 6.23%, right? So Q has already gone down by more than 5% here. It could go down a little bit more. It could go down a lot more. Sure, it's going to get a lot more people freak out. I think that's why people are unhappy, because it's just a little bit scary. They forget about all the gains that they're in the portfolio, and they just focus on what has happened over the last 2 or 3 months. That's what people do, right? We're not that far away from the tank in here either, right? I mean, we just back tested it twice here in August, September. Perfect back test here. I'm almost arguing in September. And we pushed a lot further. Simply just got a little bit way too far, way too fast away from the tank. And that's why you got a little bit of a inverted hammer there. That's kind of what I'm thinking. All right. IWM. The scariest thing here, IWM. I don't know why I think this candle here just keep on messing with me. Like the Russell 2000 doesn't look like that. If you're looking at I'm going to focus more on Russell 2000 because IWM's been throwing me off lately. So if you look at Russell 2000 here, which is basically what IWM is supposed to represent, you have a couple of things here. One is you're supposed to be breaking out of the 0.786 before things just kind of go parabolic. Here back in November, it looks like we were going to, but it decided not to. It decided to just kind of come back down and go down a lot lower here to get back underneath the 0.786. Like, nope, not yet, right? But if you look at the overall trend here, this is still a higher high, and this is still a higher low, right? I think this entire thing right there is the leg up, and this entire thing right there is the leg down. So this thing over here is a higher low compared to all these lows over here, and this thing over here is a higher high compared to all these highs over here. Sure, it broke down underneath the brown support band. It does that quite often, right? And I just kind of show you what happened even with like SPX. If it breaks underneath the brown support band, it's okay, right? It does that all the time, right? But it's just kind of taking its time. I don't know. A lot of people are worried about macro fees. there's a lot of lagging behind here on the Russell 2000, unfortunately, during this cycle. I would say the last 6 months, it had roughly performed about the same compared to the S&P 500, right? It's been underperforming the S&P 500 for a very long time. It's been underperforming the S&P 500 for a very long time. And then now it's not for the last 6 months or so. It's just been more or less performing about the same as the S&P 500. We have big, giant, big inside candle over here. And sorry, big, giant candle over here. And you have 6 inside candle here so far. So a little bit trendless. I think the whole trend downwards is losing momentum, actually, right? And you can also see that here on the RSI, where you have the ratio of the Russell 2000 over SPX going down, but the RSI has actually been going up, right? Like this is basically telling you that 5 years of decreasing on bearish momentum here against Russell 2000 when you're comparing that against the S&P 500, right? So I think roughly, because this has been roughly in line, and because this is a pretty big downtrend, I think it just needed to take its time to kind of correct itself. Whenever it ends up correcting, I think it's going to be okay, right? And then on top of all that, yeah, you are losing some indicators here so far. We did dip underneath the Tenkin here, right? The blue line over here, right? That's scary, right? I mean, you're not supposed to be breaking down like that on the bull market, but it wicks down underneath that all the time on the bull market, right? It wicks down underneath that all the time. It can even close underneath of that during a bull market. This is what Russell 2000's behavior is like. It's a little bit different for S&P 500, right? You can close underneath of that multiple times for multiple months, and it could still be a pretty strong bull market, right? Ideally, we'd like to see it show a little bit more strength like this bull market over here, where it doesn't close underneath of that. But yeah, I mean, it happens, right? I'm gonna jot down the request here, RGTI. I'm gonna look into that. I'm gonna do chart requests a little bit towards the end here. So I'm gonna go through the indexes first, and then I'm gonna go through maybe some requests and go through the miners here, maybe a little bit towards the end. So, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of show you. Is it scary? Yeah, a little bit, but the 20-month moving average is still very much strongly pointing upwards, right? And it simply is just got a little bit way too far away outside the upper Bollinger Band. Just need to kind of cool down here. When it cools down, it really cools down, right? So overall, the trend is still your friend. This is still a higher low, and I'm still not that worried about it. The truth is the risk-on index that has been outshining a lot of things right now is actually not the IWM, it's actually the ARK fund. The ARK fund is actually looking pretty incredibly bullish over the last few months or so, right? You remember the big giant November candle that you have in the IWM? It got faded for IWM, but it did not get faded here for Cathie Wood stocks at all, right? So the question comes to saying, okay, a recession is happening when the Cathie Wood stocks are getting a bid. When Roku, Zoom, and like Square, and like all those kinds of things are getting a bid, right? I just don't really understand that logic. PSQH, I'm going to add that onto the request list here as well. We'll get to that here later. But the ARK fund here has been performing incredibly well. Like it has not faded this whole November candle here at all. I probably just jinxed it by talking about it. But also broke through the 0.382 fit level here, log fit level here, and it came back test almost perfectly, and looks like it's holding pretty well. Sure, you got a big giant, trees on top here, but the month is still young, and you still have some time for this to go. Monthly Ichimoku here over the Tenkin Nikijin, suspending in space right now, a little bit too far away from the Tenkin. So it wouldn't surprise me if we end up correcting down a little bit further, but so far it doesn't really look like it wants to do that. Why do we have a hard time breaking through above? Well, because it's still restricted by the upper Bollinger Band here on the monthly, but on the weekly, it looks pretty decent, right? Looks like a bull flag being formed here. We want support bends way underneath, so yeah, it could correct down a little bit further, should it need to. Yeah, it can. But so far, the ARK fund has been outperforming the S&P 500 really over the last 4 or 5 months or so. It's actually quite incredible. If you put up the Ichimoku cloud, something cool has happened, right? When you look at this arc over SPY chart, you see that it's really been consolidating sideways over here against arc against SPY since 2023. S&P 500 kind of really ran away from ARK funds for the beginning of the year in 2024. But so far, you have this ratio actually breaking through the Ichimoku cloud and backtesting the Ichimoku cloud here, which means that there's probably going to be some bullish continuation here for this ratio chart, which probably means that ARK fund is going to end up outperforming S&P 500 moving forward, which actually means that this is extremely strange behavior for something that's is supposed to be more risk on, but is actually behaving very well right now, right? So a lot of these recession calls, I'm just a little bit questioning that. Yeah, and I'm happy to do BP here in a sec. I just have like 20 something different requests that I have to go through. So we'll see whether or not we can get through the end. But I do want to spend some time talking about macro here a little bit because I think it's important to talk about that, put things in the context here a little bit because of the fear that's been going out there and because a lot of people are really scared right now. So a lot of people focusing on US dollar. Does it look bullish? Yeah, it does. It has a katana. It looks like it wants to go higher. What the heck is going on? Is that going to put a damper into the the whole thesis about stocks being bullish? Yeah, I guess so. It's always possible, but you also have things that are a little bit way outside the upper Bollinger Band here right now on the monthly, right? So I'm not sure whether or not it's going to just keep on continuing up like that. And also on top of that, this is no matter how high it goes, this is still a lower high compared to what it did back in September 2022, right? On top of that, this whole thing just looked like a big giant megaphone. It's a consolidation pattern. Some people call it some people think that a megaphone pattern can be a reversal pattern, like down, megaphone, and then just push up, right? But in general, these megaphone pattern are continuation patterns. So you have a high here, down, megaphone, continuation pattern, down, right? Not a guarantee because this actually looks a little tiny bit different from the past, but not really because if you look at the 2017 all the way through 2020, you can see did kind of the same thing. Came back down, make a little bit of a low, and it just kind of went up. Have a little bit of a lower high here compared to that, and then that like defies gravity and all that. And in like March 2020, and the next thing it just ended plummeting, right? So maybe we're kind of experiencing the same thing. Although this is also a really weird time because that's COVID. Um, but yeah, it's exhibiting some pretty weird behavior here. So yeah, maybe I should be cautious. Maybe I'm being a little bit less too less cautious than I should be. But I don't know. I'm looking at the 2-year yield. The 10-year also look a little bit more bullish too. Actually, I'm gotta give it to the bears if they're believing in the whole yield thing. And we're going to talk about TOT here in a second. You believe in the whole yield thing, which I can't. I kind of do. You know the whole thing about yield. So if you look at the monthly, it just looks like the 2-year yield just looks like it wants to roll over. It just had a lower low over here. It just looks like it wants to form a lower high at some point, maybe back over here at the 4.5 range, and then probably end up getting rejected and just end up going a lot lower, right? Why can it go to the 4.5 range right now is because there's a resistance right now as we speak. It's right at the Kijun resistance right here on the monthly. So if that gets rejected, we just had a bearish crossover here, get rejected, it's probably going to go down to the cloud around 3.3, 3.4% or something like that, right? Assuming that that's what I'm seeing here technically to be correct. Now, 10-year actually looks more bullish because 10-year has actually made a slightly higher high here compared to there, although it's still a lower high compared to that, right? I still think most likely yields have topped over here, and we're going for a last hurrah here for the 10-year. 10-year just looks a lot stronger than the 2-year. And actually is not a bad thing for the economy if the long dated yields are higher than the short dated yields. This actually is a pretty healthy thing, you know. So you can say, yeah, 10-year scary. Mortgage rate is going to go up a lot higher because of that, right? Not really. I mean, you still got mortgage rate here still making a lower high compared to that. So I just don't know whether or not banks are going to fail, right? Now, to be honest, if you look at TLT, and I was kind of talking about TLT, I was like, I don't know about TLT in terms of whether or not this is like a good, whether or not this is like a good investment right now, because this just looks a lot weaker. This is based on 20 plus year treasury bonds, and if the yields are up, then bonds are down, right? And yields so far are up, and I just think that this is probably already bottomed. Good evening, Matt. I just think that this is probably already bottomed, and it's just doing another like bottomy thing. And sometimes you just have these kinds of things where it looks like it's a bottom. I really do think that it's a bottom. By the way, there are a couple of things to kind of talk a little bit more about that. But you look at the RSI on the monthly here, you have a bullish divergence here. So I think this is the bottom potentially. You also look at a Bollinger Band. I like how it kind of touched the Bollinger Band here twice, right? That usually signifies that this is like more bottoming behavior. And I also love the volume that we've had. Like this is true capitulation volume. And I guess there's still people that are trying to capitulate here. I don't know. That's it's just doing its own thing here. With that said, I think it's still a little bit weak because even though you did have a bullish cross here, you still have price underneath the Tenkan Kitchen here, so that's going to lag. You initially broke through about a flattening 20-month moving average, and now you kind of broke it down underneath of that, so that's going to be your resistance here. Again, it could end up bouncy ball here for a little bit longer before going up, so I don't think TLT is going to be that great of a how do you say that? It's still going to be fine, but I just don't see that the reward is necessarily there at this time. When I see something like Cathie Wood stocks looking like it wants to kind of keep going higher, granted, I think even the Cathie Wood stocks can use a little bit of a correction down, but it just looks like the momentum is not there for TLT quite just yet, and it's gonna take some time for it to need to do anything. So that's kind of my thoughts on TLT. Now, if you're looking at, this is one of the requests, by the way. If you look at the fifth level here, it's like there's nothing. It's just underneath the 0.136 here. It's just kind of limbo. You're really hoping that this is like a little bit of a double bottom here, right? We'll see whether or not that becomes true. But just kind of stuck here, kind of in the middle of the fifth level here. So hard to read TLT. I would probably just leave it alone for now. Is it okay to buy for long term? I think so. Even if it goes down, even if it makes a low from here, the risk reward ratio still skews towards reward. But if you're one of those folks that wants the best return for your money, it may not be a TLT. Hey, Jules. Good evening. I am going to talk about a ETF here, which is the Quantum ETF. I have an arrow there. I think that was supposed to signify that it's resistance and it's getting rejected there. I have a Gann chart here as well, 720 and 0.1, right? And you can see that something remarkable has happened. And I saw this big giant volume buy and then followed by big giant volume sell. I saw that kind of before Mara, actually, before it goes sideways for a very, very long time. There's a potential for the quantum stocks to cool off for months. There's that potential. So if you enter in these quantum stocks, and this is actually, it doesn't look as bad as the other quantum stocks overall, but the reason why is because this is actually diluted with a lot of semiconductor stocks, things like that. But still, it's a pretty interesting way to look at quantum stocks in general, because you have like like a lot of other quantum stocks we're going to talk a little bit more about. You really have just kind of plummeted down, right? But QTUM actually has been holding pretty well. Actually, the technicals has been impeccable, right? It actually got rejected perfectly off the game box over here. Came back down, got rejected here at the ARK, right? Trying to push through, not able to, got rejected here at the angle too. Right now, you're underneath of that. So it's probably gonna go down maybe a little bit further down here as well. I do think that most likely it's probably going to end up consolidating sideways here, underneath the arc here for a little while, probably for months. It's my biggest suspicion, right? Oh, actually, I should not have done that because that was log scale. I'm going to go back because it's going to be all messed up here. This is interesting. Actually, I looked at that on a linear scale. There's actually some market symmetry, but that's going to be all messed up. Sorry, that was drawn on log scale, so I'm going to go back to that on log here, right? And on log, I'm seeing the same thing here, right? But it looks a little bit different here. Like it got to the top of my Gantt square. In this, yeah, you got to the top of my Gantt square here, and it came back down, right? It didn't break down the arc, so you could potentially just kind of hang around the arc here for months and months and months. Maybe find support here at the angle, I don't know, right? So you could potentially just hang out here for months and months and months, for like 2 or 3 months at least, I would suspect, before further bullish continuation. Do I think that this is bullish overall for the entire sector? I think probably, right? Because if I look at the monthly here, and this whole thing right here is a monthly Bollinger Band. It got way outside the upper Bollinger Band, just doing what it needs to kind of correct it back down, right? Getting close to the upper Bollinger Band here a little bit. It will probably gravitate back down and touch it. That's what Palantir just did, right? You probably come back down and kind of touch it here a little bit. But that's kind of what we're seeing here. A little bit far of extent, and it's just kind of back testing when it needed back test, right? Getting back to your request, RGTI. It's what is it doing right now? Is it doing the same thing? Well, I mean, it was a little bit way over the upper Bollinger Band here, right? And simply start the month like right up here in space. So it would come down 50%, touch the upper Bollinger Band here. Does this make that bull trend over? I don't know. I mean, I think bull trend could potentially keep on going up a lot higher. But right now, Bollinger Band is still kind of a little bit expanding to the downside. So I'm going to give a benefit of the doubt that this is still a bull trend. That's just kind of consolidating sideways here a little bit. But yeah, that's what you would expect. You would expect stocks to kind of follow gravity, right? You also have the Tenkan and Kijun, the blue line, red line over here. They're pushing up, and right now price is underneath of that. Now you got to be a little bit careful here because depending on how the month goes and the following month goes, there's a potential for price to kind of get underneath of that Tenkan Kijun. If we couldn't get back above the Tenkan Kijun, then the cycle is over for quantum stocks, right? That's over RGTI. But as long as it's not really truly breaking down underneath of it, it still had a potential chance. I'm going to show you what I mean by that by comparing that to MSTR. You see how the MSTR had the big giant push up, right? And then after they just spend like a whole year underneath the Tenkan and Kijun here, right? You want to be careful that these quantum stocks are not doing that. It probably give you some time to exit if it does that. They're probably going to end up having like a prolonged distribution phase. I don't think it's just going to be like V-shape, V-shape up, V-shape down. If it ends up being a complete exhausted trend, then just keep watching it. If it gets underneath the Tenkan Kijun there, then be a little bit more careful. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Regardless, if I'm pulling up the Gantt chart here that I've drawn for RGTI, we'll turn off the volume here. And I'm going to zoom out here a little bit, 316, 0.1. Pretty decent market symmetry, right? It's just spanned like a whole half a year to a year. It spent a whole year basically stuck between these arcs over here. Eventually was able to push through arc number 1, 2, and 3. Can you imagine after it pushes through like actually 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And can you imagine after it pushes through all these arcs, got rejected here 0.6, no, sorry, got rejected here 1.618 fit level here, which is completely expected. And then come back down here, you would hope that it would hold at 0.76, right? But it's a little bit underneath of that. 0.618 could potentially be a good level for it to hold. You look at the log scale though, it pushes through the all-time high here. And yeah, margin call, you're right. Quantum doesn't really have concentration. That's why it didn't go down much. A lot of it is like semiconductors, things like that. Where did it hold support at, guys, for RGTI? Where did it hold support at? 0.886 on the log, right? It like hold it perfectly. Does it have to go down further? That's always a possibility for it going down further. How much could it potentially go down further? Could it go down further all the way down to $6 to 0.786? It can do that, right? Does it have to? I don't know. Was it way outside the upper Bollinger Band? Did it show some signs of exhaustion? Yeah, it does, right? But does it have to go down all that much further? I don't know. If it goes down a lot further, it would still be a higher low compared to what it was down here. But it can be extremely brutal, which is why I don't like to chase, right? which is whenever like Danny was bringing up these quantum stocks to me, and then I made a video for them on his behalf based on his chart. I was like, there's a lot of momentum here. I don't know when it's going to stop, but it's going to, at some point, going to have some pretty brutal correction here. I don't want to chase. Right now that it's now that somebody dropped the knife, you're trying to catch the knife. Where is it going to be? I don't think anybody knows the answer to that. All I can say is that showing you that this past week is bouncing off of 0.86 here. That's all I can say. It's still a little bit far away from the traditional support that I see, like the banner support band is still all the way down underneath, right? The weekly Ichimoku, you already broke down underneath the Tenkan Nikkei over here. You already broke down underneath of those. Those are not going to be like good support here. Yeah, if it breaks down, it could go all the way down to $6. I'm telling you, but it doesn't have to. Depends on whether or not it ended up catching a bit here. But even with my GAN level, it seems that the next strong level after breaking down here would be around $6. That's all. I'm just showing you what I'm seeing. If I do if I do a linear scale, you could potentially have some support here around $8, which is 0.61 here on linear. Right. All right. That's it for that. I'm going to talk a little bit about other things here. What other things I'm going to talk about? Let's talk about some of the chart requests that you guys have requested. I'm going to cross out all the stuff that I have a pen here. I'm going to cross out all the stuff that I talked about already, which is a lot. But let's talk about PSQH. I have no idea what that is. PSQ Holdings, I probably have charted this before. The question is going to be, has this bottomed and is it going to go down further? The answer is always tricky. There are a few things I look at. One is I immediately pull up, look at a monthly, to look at the 20-month moving average. Now, the 20-month moving average is going to be telling the telltale sign for me, and I find 20-month moving average to be a pretty decent time frame to see whether or not the downtrend or uptrend of the cycle is over, or we're not showing any kind of we're not showing any kind of exhaustion, and whether or not it's showing any kind of potential, reversal, things like that. In general, if things are showing a big expansion on the low Bollinger Band all the way down to the ground, and it's a downtrend, I get very scared. In general, whenever the 20-month moving average start to kind of curl down like this and continues to curl down, which can serve as strong resistance, I get scared. Now, here is not to say that it has not bottomed, because it could be. This is a big giant green candle that's not to be ignored, right? So I'm not saying that it's not bottomed. What I'm saying is that even if that was the bottom here, you could get rejected here and make it lick down and try to find support down here, which I think that's the most likely scenario of what this stock is going to do, right? And if it ends up doing that, then it gets a little bit tricky, right? Because where is the support going to be if it ends up doing that, which is actually my primary case? I mean, I think you can pull up some of the lower fit levels here and trying to see how low it can go. It can go potentially as low as maybe $3. And that would still be the process of trying to change it from, it's still going to be a challenge to try to change it from what it wants to potentially do in terms of a trend reversal. I'm going to do TIGR here as well. This is going to be on my list, so don't worry. But yeah, here I cannot really justify necessarily entering here, because there's a potential for it to kind of go lower. If you end up with DCing calls down all the way down here, and you're like, should I keep on DCing down here? I don't know the answer to that. All I'm saying is, like, I don't know anything about this company. I'm just saying is that it looks like it's at resistance right now here, even on the Tenkan, right? The Tenkan has been very sharply going down here on the monthly, and here it got rejected here by this big giant wake up here. Is also underneath of that right now, right? So I can see this being a little bit of bearishness here. So I'm gonna say that I'm gonna keep watching this, because I generally don't like it when things are just like underneath resistance like that. So be a little bit careful here. That's what I'm going to try to say here. But yeah, I can look a little bit closer at the weekly. I do think that on the weekly, there's a little bit of an attempt to kind of change behavior, but you're also underneath resistance here at the cloud. You're also underneath resistance here at the thing. Occasionally, you're also getting rejected, right? So there's potential for it to fall out of the cloud, kind of hovering down here a little bit before trying to break back into the cloud. On top of that, you're also looking at the burn support band. You did flip the burn support band from resistance here to support, right? So most likely you're going to find support here around the $3, 350 range, which is exactly what I was trying to talk about. So that's what I think about PSQH. One more BP, and then I'm going to probably take a break here. I'm going to have to check on something here real quick for a couple minutes. On BP, I'm assuming, yeah, this is the oil company, right? On the weekly chart, you can see that it's kind of reclaiming the buy support band from resistance here to support here. If you are looking at the weekly Ichimoku, it is still kind of stuck in a range, right? You can see how it got rejected here by the kitchen almost perfectly. So it's probably going to end up getting stuck here in a range for a little bit before breaking out. If you look at the monthly chart, looking at the Bollinger Band, you can see that it has formed a very nice trident bottom over here. I think this is a pretty decent bottom here, actually. And I think that the 20-month moving average is curling down, but it's flattening. I think it's a good chance for it to kind of push back up here, back to the basis line over here around $33.50. And I think that there's a good chance for it to challenge that and maybe even reclaim it from resistance to support. I think that's an entire possibility for that. You did have a bearish cross over here. So again, you have a lot of very similar resistance here around 33, 33 and a half. That's going to be resistance right here. We're going to see how it reacts to it. If it doesn't get pushed through, you still have the monthly Ichimoku cloud down here around $30 to serve as support to push price back up through eventually, right? But just understand there's a confluence or resistance zone right up here above, and don't expect it to push through the very first time. Probably going to get rejected here. Probably have to come back and try to find some kind of support here. Maybe we're a support band. We eventually kind of push up to use that as support. Maybe it has to come back down to the cloud to go up higher. All of these are strong possibilities. And that's what I think about BP. Sorry. Go from the top here too, going down here. Look at some of Fibonacci sequences here. It still looks pretty decent because it's coming back down. It's grabbing 0.86 here. Looks like it's holding pretty decent. Now, do I like energy names in general? I actually am a little bit skeptical on like energy names in general. Sorry, I didn't know that I was like showing only part of my charts here. Let me pull back over here. This might be a lot more helpful for you. Why didn't you guys say anything? Like if you look at BP here, I gotta go. I gotta look at oil, right? If I look at oil here, where's oil? WTI. Do I have it? My brain's not working very well today. U.S. oil. There you go. If you look at U.S. oil, I'm a little bit worried about oil prices, to be completely honest with you, because it looks like a big giant descending triangle here that could end up breaking down. Which is also part of the reason why I also am skeptical about the DXY rise and about yields and all that, because oil looks extremely weak here. So I don't know what it's going to do, but it doesn't look that bullish to me. So maybe be a little bit careful about oil companies, with the exception that I actually don't think that this chart looked too bad. But this could also be distribution. This could also be just the first lick down, right? It could go all the way down to the 0.786 here. That's always a possibility. It could break down into the Ichimoku cloud because it's coming up from above. So just be a little bit careful when it comes to oil name. You did have a bearish cross here. You do have a lot of resistance here. That's just kind of showing you. So I think it's probably going to get rejected, coming back down, and you just see how it reacts down here. That's all I have to say about that. I can look at EQNR here real quick. And it's basically looking weaker, right? It basically broke underneath the cloud, and you back test in the cloud here. You be getting rejected here, then down you go to the bottom of the cloud, right? Around $20. So just be a little bit more careful when it comes to these kinds of names. Again, a little bit of rejection here, the 20-month moving average too. It could potentially go down further, right? So just be a little bit careful when it comes to names like this. I don't generally like it when things go up and then you're like flattening and have a little bit of a trend change looking thing here, and you get rejected here by these kind of previously support level. I just want to be a little bit more cautious here. That's all. So I'm gonna check on something. I'll be back in like a couple minutes. Okay. All right. Let me actually write down here. Be back in 2 or 3 minutes. I just really want to check on one thing. Let's see. All right. All right, things checked. Yeah, just be a little bit more careful when it comes to energy names. I don't know, like look at how it behaves in the past, right? Whenever it breaks underneath the 20 and it can becomes more flat and we back testing it, it can go down a lot further, right? Same thing. I'm gonna be a little bit more skeptical here with energy names. It doesn't have to, like over here and breaking underneath, back testing, next thing you just make another high. It doesn't have to, right? Maybe the same thing's going to happen here and as it does here, but there's no guarantee. So just be a little bit more careful. All right. So let me just go ahead and talk about a number of requests that you guys have had. AMD. A lot of people wonder about AMD. It's just been a dog of a stock here. I honestly just have like one thing to say about AMD. Is that this whole like downtrend over here for the entire year has been going on declining volume. The entire year of 2024 was lost and more, right? You're talking about prices going back down to like November of 2023. This is an extremely brutal downtrend that is probably not really warranted based on fundamentals. I don't even want to pretend I'm like wanting to even talk about fundamentals here, but this whole downtrend here is probably unwarranted. And the whole downtrend here is happening on declining volume. That really gets me a little bit more suspicious in terms of what um, price is doing versus what's actually happening behind the scenes, right? It'll actually get me a little bit more suspicious in terms of, for example, um, let me see here, Fintel. It gets me a little bit suspicious in terms of what institutions are actually doing. And it looks to me that uh, institutions are, let me see, are more or less accumulating, you know. So I don't know why the stock has just been a dog. It's just been going down like crazy on like declining volume. So this move is not to be trusted. The lower it goes, the more reward you get. The one thing about AMD though, it did break down underneath the 20-month moving average, which is extremely weak price action. Yeah, it can do that. Sometimes it can do that. Has it done it before and it just kind of bounced up like crazy? It did that in 2017, 2018, where it just kind of dips underneath on a very similar situation, dips underneath on declining volume, right? And next thing you know, it just pushed up a lot higher, right? When was the last time AMD did that? Well, it did down here, 5 inside candles here to this big giant green candle and just go up a lot higher, right? Just takes a little bit of volume, next thing you know, the trend just reverses. So the lower it goes, the more risk-reward ratios, like the better risk-reward ratio is going to be. How low can it go? Nobody really knows the answer to that because it's just low volume crap. Like, I really don't know how low volume can drag you down. It can drag you down a lot lower. If it wants to touch the cloud down here about $100, it can do that. But does it have to? No, not necessarily. I think that this is a log scale here. I think that it can go down to the sorry, that was a linear scale here. This is a log scale. It could potentially go down to like the log scale 0.618. It's already broken down underneath the 0.786 and back tested and failed to hold. It could go down to the 0.618 down here below. It's possible, right? On low volume, so lower it goes, the better. Whatever it wants to do, I don't really care. The whole thing about trend is sometimes you just look at something like this and you're just like, I I don't have a certain level. All I know is that it's going down in low volume, and when it goes down low volume, you have to just do what you need to assess your risk reward ratio. Same thing here, right? Like for a firm, I didn't know how low it's going to go here on low volume. There's no volume here at all. The entire downtrend, right? All it takes just 1 month of price action to reverse and engulf all these bearishness over here because there's no volume. Like all it takes just a little bit of volume, just engulf everything, right? Here, like I was buying like in the mid 30s, in the low 30s, and like in the high 20s, and then like now I'm in profit. Like it's just one of those things that I see that same thing happening with AMD. And if you ask me how low it's going to go, I don't know. You asked me whether or not the risk reward ratio is here. I would say yeah. You asked me whether or not I want to buy something like this. I would say no, because I do have exposure to the whole semiconductor space. I do think NVIDIA actually still looks pretty decent, despite of the recent scare. So I have and I have enough exposure to semiconductor stocks already. So I'm not going to get into AMD, but those are kind of my thoughts. HIMS. Well, a lot of people ask about HIMS. How bad is HIMS? HIMS, nothing's happening with HIMS. It's just been forming higher highs and higher lows. Like, it's just what it's been doing, right? So when it's doing forming higher highs and higher lows, I'm just going to expect it to continue to form higher highs and higher lows. Notice until it breaks down underneath any particularly concerning levels. And right now, it's just basically broke through, got back above here, and basically just kind of back test the previous all-time high, right? If you use the linear scale log here, all it did is really just kind of push above to the 1.414 here, and then basically just come back down and back testing the previous all-time high here. Looks like it's holding pretty well. Despite the scare in the market, the broad support band is still underneath below. I think they still have a lot of plenty of support here down below. It got stuck here between the tank and the kitchen in a range buying support here at the kitchen. So far, nothing scary here. If you even look at, like, zoom out, look at the monthly here, the correction kind of had to happen. You already had price kind of went way too far, way too fast. The whole December candle was basically just correcting back down underneath the monthly Bollinger Band. And right now, just kind of getting stuck underneath the monthly Bollinger Band here a little bit. Right? You don't have the monthly Bollinger Band expansion here anymore. You have a little bit of contraction, but that's okay. Like, that doesn't necessarily mean the trend's over, because upper Bollinger Band continues to expand up higher. Right? It's extremely volatile stock. There's nothing really that super scary about it, and it's also not really overextended away from the Tenkan either. Right? You can see how it's really just kind of hovering around the Tenkan here. It's not even back testing it. It doesn't even really need to do that. It's a pretty bullish stock. Granted, things can happen in a WIMP, right? Whenever a big, giant, parabolic bull trend like this, sometimes things can end up correcting sideways. You can end up going up, just hovering around 20 bucks, just going to go sideways here for a little bit longer and then go up further, right? If you end up having exhaustion here. But I just don't really see evidence for that happening quite just yet. And you shouldn't buy things, if you can help it this high. You should have look at, hey, higher high, higher low here. I'm gonna try to buy higher low over here. So when it gets to a point like this, you wouldn't have to make the decision, right? Which is why in general I look at stocks that try not to buy something like this. I try to catch a little bit lower, so psychologically when price get up here, because it could literally just kind of shooting up, or you can end up just going sideways here. But you bought it down here, then psychologically it would have been a lot better for you. I know it's not helpful for you now, but if you are talking about if things are able to break back above the previous all-time high here, or if things are able to hold as support here, and then you talk about re-challenging it up through the 1.414 here, and I think the ultimate target is going to be 1.618, which is $39.42. Because we spent so much time struggling at 1.414, I'm not sure we're gonna end up hitting resistance here. Initially, I thought that 1.618 was going to be big resistance, but 1.414 may already have served as that. So it could just go up from here, and that's probably where it's going to challenge next, right? Or it could go down here to either 0.86 or 0.786 and backtest some of the stuff here below before going up further. The way it's looking right now, I think this level over here holds, and it's probably going to push up a lot higher whenever the greater market becomes bullish again. So we shall see. That's HIMS. I'm going to talk about next is QS. This is a stock that I also have a position in. I've been building my position, really been buying around like the 6s, and I've been buying down to 5s. Right now, this is a big giant rounded bottom. I have nothing bad or good to say about it, except that I think that this is a pretty decent spot to buy. The reason why I say that is because if you look at the moving averages, I'm going to show you here where I'm at. There you go. So whenever I look at moving averages, I look at 3 different moving averages, usually on the weekly here. I look at 20, 50, and 100. 20 is orange, 50 is blue, 100 is black. And you see how each of those have served as resistance on the way down, right? Initially, it had a hard time getting over to 20. Then it's having a hard time getting over 50. Now it's having a hard time getting over 100. But you're getting a time where you're getting closer and closer together with 20, 50, and 100 could potentially cross any time over Q1 or Q2 of 2025. So you have a big giant green candle like you had one over here, here, and here. And it's possible that it's happening at any time, because whenever you have a Bollinger Band squeeze like this, you usually have a pump, right? Bollinger Band squeeze, pump, Bollinger Band pump, Bollinger Band squeeze, pump. Bollinger Band squeeze, is this the pump? Maybe this is it, right? Maybe you end up having to go sideways here a little bit longer. And this could be potentially dead money for another 6 months or so. Entirely possibly be dead money for 6 months or so. Just keep going sideways here. Complete this whole big giant round at bottom. And next thing you know, by 2026, price could be a lot higher from here, right? And this could be a little bit more of a sustainable bull trend, right? But so far it is still. I would say it's bottom, but it's still not ready to just keep pumping up from here, right? You can see over the last 6 months or so, it's a big giant. It's a inside 6 candles here of this big giant green candle over here, right? So I would say that it's still wanting to build up more energy. I think this downtrend here is over, and it's building a lot of energy, really trying to push up above whenever it's ready, right? It's been on the 2-week chart here. It's been building a lot of bullish divergence here for about 2 years now. So I think that it's building up enough energy. Whenever it wants to pop, it could pop. But I think it's probably going to be another 6 months or so. Looking at the monthly Bollinger Band here too, you can see how the 20-month moving average has been resistance here. I've been back tested multiple times. One of these days it's going to break. I just didn't know whether or not it's going to be here. But one of these days it's going to break. Happy to keep on accumulating down here, because I don't want to be like crazy in terms of the targets. Assuming that we're bottom, which there's always a chance that we haven't, but assume that we're bottom, it doesn't have to go to all-time high for you to make a lot of money. All it has to do is just to hit some of these FIB levels here above, and I would be pretty happy. But there's a potential, once the trend truly changes, it could really seriously hit some of the levels up here above. And it looks like the institutions have been accumulating this stock. So that's QS, OKTA, OKTA. It's looking pretty decent. Looking at the Bollinger Band here, right off the bat, you can see that it pushes to upper Bollinger Band, got rejected, had to come back down, couldn't hold the basis, got underneath of it right now as resistance, but it's trying to reclaim it so far for the month of January. Even though the market has been a little bit weak, right? It's been trying to reclaim that, which is not a bad thing. If you can also see like on the daily chart here, the January has been weak, but it's been doing well. It's been showing some relative strength. Look at the weekly Bollinger Band, not Bollinger, weekly Bollinger Support Band is flipping from resistance here to support, right? A lot of things are telling me that I think it's looking pretty decent here. I like the trend so far, mostly forming higher highs and higher lows, and it's just kind of stuck, right? If you look at where it's getting stuck at, I think the key thing would be look at the FIB levels here. Now we're going to give you a very clear picture, because it's getting stuck here underneath the 0.382 after it got rejected or 0.5, broke underneath the 0.382, is trying to break back above, having a little hard time doing so. Look at the Ichimoku cloud. You also have the 0.382 being the bottom of the Ichimoku cloud, right? Right now, what's happening right now is stuck in the range. It didn't break down underneath the Tenkan. It's just stuck in the range between the Tenkan and Kijun. Building up some energy before pushing through. There's a vulnerable spotter cloud right there. It could have just pushing through after you have enough energy to push through. You have a little bit of declining volume here on the downtrend. All of this downtrend here, I think the seller is kind of a little bit exhausted. So it's probably going to need to build up a little bit of energy, push through that arc, that location right there at the cloud, and it just kind of challenges 0.5 here again. The same area where he got rejected last time, and then we'll see when it gets to 0.678 sometime in 2025, which would be a pretty significant gain, because you're talking about like 80% price increase from here if it ends up hitting it somewhere around 2025. But it has to break for 0.5, 0.382 first, although I think it's probably going to do that because it looks like it wants to. Next, TIGR. TIGR. I have a position. I'm still buying. It's broken underneath the 0.382 here. I'm not scared, right? Because look at how strong this horizontal range over here is. Just look at how strong that horizontal range there is. If I tick out, yeah, I don't really have like a good FIB level to show you, but if you just eyeball, like, you don't even need anything else. You just look at the monthly chart. You just look at the monthly chart. You can see like it's been having a hard time breaking about the 0.136. Or if you're looking at the log fibs here, there's a hard time breaking about the 0.382, right? Just have a hard time doing it. Why is it having a hard time doing it? It's because the Bollinger Band here has been not expanded enough, right? You just keep on getting rejected here up the Bollinger Band. It's still about the rising 20-month moving average, right? So there is still a trend change, right? From a negative sloping 20-month moving average, flat. You spend a whole year trying to flip this thing bullish, and eventually the candle in September did it. And right now, it just kind of hang out in space, and you have a hard time breaking about the 0.382. That's what it's doing. And it's also having a hard time breaking through the Tengen Kishin underneath over here, still underneath these resistance here. So yeah, it's building up some energy here. It's trying to do its thing, but overall, this is still a higher high here. Compare all these highs over here, and no matter how low it drops, it's still going to be a higher low compared to these lows down here. So this is still a bull trend. I'm not that scared about like the little details though. I am still buying because I think the downtrend volume, this is very important, right? Big giant pump up here, and the volume down here has been declining, right? You're basically flushing people out, right? Flush, reaccumulate, flush on declining volume, right? And the last flush is pretty good. It really flushed down a lot, unlike no volume here at all. And all it takes is just a little bit of volume for things to just kind of go crazy, right? I just cannot deny like this whole horizontal range over here around 5.5. It seems like it's just a big giant zone for whatever reason. I can't really find a fit level to fit that, but it just seems like a big giant level here around 5.5 that it's been kind of hanging out around. Let me see if I can show a volume shelf here. Ever since the start of the stock, you just got like this big giant level here around 5.5 that has just been like a lot of trade history here, right? You are trying to hold at the volume shelf up here. We'll see. Like I think it can drop all the way down to 5.5. It would still be a pretty buy zone for me. And I'm not like expecting it to just moon all of a sudden, although I think that Chinese stocks could end up seeing another like big spike, maybe sometime later in January or like sometime in February, because it's already kind of corrected enough here for about 3 to 4 months. I think that is going to look okay moving forward. Um, but yeah, I do think that it does suck that we're not able to break above the 0.382. But I'm not scared. Like, look at the Blue support band. We are dipping underneath of that here a little bit, but that never really scares me that much, because you can dip underneath Blue support band here for a lot of bull trend. I just showed you, right? Even for like S&P 500, you can break underneath of the Blue support band, and it would still be a pretty decent bull market. IWM is doing the same thing. It broke underneath the Blue support band here multiple times, which includes the 20-week moving average, which is what I'm trying to say, but it can still keep going up a lot higher. So that alone doesn't really scare me. I still like it because of the volume. I still like it because it's backtesting a horizontal zone, and I'm still going to keep on DCAing in it and see how it goes. I don't have any other Chinese play. I think Baba is an underperformer. Somebody asked me about Alibaba as well. I'm just going to go ahead and talk about that and FUTU as well. Not Bob. What the heck is Bob? Alibaba is a little bit of a even a worse underperformer because it has a hard time really even breaking about 0.382. If you look at if you're just looking at the whoa, okay. If you're just looking at the monthly candle here, I'm going to get rid of the fit level here because it's not entirely helpful. Initially, we're thinking, hey, maybe it's on declining volume. Maybe this is a rising three type situation, and you're going to find some reversal here. So far, the month is underneath of that. We'll see whether or not this ultimately becomes an inside candle. If it is, then it's still pretty bullish for Alibaba, with the exception that, yeah, it's breaking underneath of the 20-month moving average. Can you wick underneath of that? Yeah, you can. You wick above that over here. It couldn't break through, right? Can you wick underneath of that? Could just be a little bit of wick. Could you have a false breakdown here, like a false breakout over here? Certainly can be. But it all depends on volume. The downtrend volume is still declining here, right? So I'm going to give it a little bit of benefit of doubt that I think it's having some trend change. It does have a little bit of a bearish engulfing candle here on the weekly, but again, the volume is not great, right? So I'm going to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt here. I do think that very similar to AMD. A lot of people might get offended if I compare AMD to Alibaba, but very similar to AMD, it can keep going down a little volume. I don't know where it's going to end, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be like continue to be bearish forever, because I think the sellers are really getting pretty exhausted here. But there's just been no buyer yet, so all it takes is some volume to come in and some people to buy, and next thing you know, the price can shoot up a lot higher because it's been going down, decelerating on declining volume. The FUTU, if you'll talk about that, very similar situation here. Breakdown underneath the 0.382. It's getting to back to the 70s. It's hard to say where that range could be, right? You do have some price history here around the low 70s. You do have some price history around the upper 60s or so. It's just forming a bull flag over here on exhausting volume. So if you ask me like how low can FUTU get, I don't think anybody really knows the answer to that. Does it go all the way down to the weekly Ichimoku cloud? Does it have to do that? I don't think so. It did bring underneath the monthly Ichimoku cloud here a little bit, right? But so far it's still a little bit early here in January. So we'll see how it goes. As far as I'm concerned, that's the tough part about these stocks. Still a higher low here compared to that low, right? I'm just not going to even use any indicators. It's still a higher low here compared to that low. And the 20-month moving average is still pointing up. And the whole thing here is still having a hard time just breaking above the resistance levels up here above. But all of this is happening on like hugely declining volume, and you're really having a lot of exhaustion here with the bears. How low can it get? I don't think anybody really knows the answer to that. On low volume, again, I just kind of show you how bad AMD can get. Right, it's been exceeding a lot of people's expectation, but it just continued to go lower. Even FUTU, yeah, I broke down underneath here at the support band here. Does it mean that's going to be resistance here for a little bit? It can. On the way up, it's been serving as resistance here, and support here has been oscillating around it. So this is not any like unusual behavior for FUTU to kind of dip down underneath the support band here a little bit to try and build up some energy, see how it goes, and then take it from there, right? But all it takes just a little bit of volume for you to kind of reverse something like this in a big way. So I can't say like this is one thing that I'm trying to avoid. I don't want to get super bullish when things are up all the way up here because it was just simply way too overextended. But as price goes down lower and lower and lower, thank you, Han Yolo. Thank you for the $2 sticker. I appreciate that. As price goes lower and lower and lower on low volume, like the risk reward ratio skews to risk reward, right? All of these are still more or less like inside candle, this big giant green candle. So regardless, like I don't know what you should like. I don't want to be like super bullish here, and next thing you know, price keeps on plummeting back down here further, and you're like, oh, you're bullish here. Well, I mean, like I think there are reasons to be bullish. Like volume's exhausting. You come back down to this horizontal zone over here, and it's been correcting more than 3 or 4 months. Like I think that is probably a decent time to think about this, maybe to take risks, not financial advice. I'm taking risks. I'm buying TIGR. I'm just not buying FUTU. But I think TIGR actually may have a little bit more momentum show things go up. I'm just trying to get into that momentum trade here. That's all. As far as I'm concerned, like all these Chinese stocks are momentum trades. I'm not gonna really buy them like for long-term hold because I actually still don't know whether or not the Hang Seng Index can make an all-time high anytime soon, because it's going to take a lot of energy for it to get to like the 33,000s here. And I think most likely Hang Seng is probably going to end up pushing up, end up getting ready, pushing up here to maybe the 0.786 here, form a higher low here. And that's going to be a resistance zone over here based on the trend line here as well. Maybe it lands somewhere up here, and that would be the end of the cycle. I don't know. Like if it breaks out 0.786, then that'd be very surprising. Just keep going a lot higher. Then yeah. IWM, I'm going to go back here for margin call, looking at IWM to see whether or not it's simply putting a handle on the cup, and a cup and handle is formed in 2021. Possible. I think you're talking about like this. Well, I'm a little bit confused here as to what you mean by that. You're talking about a cup like this is the handle. I'm not sure. I mean, this could very well be a handle here forming. You know, like here is a handle, here's a handle. It's been a big giant cup here, and all these are handles, and it's just kind of staircasing on the way up. If that's what you're referring to, margin call. I'm not sure. But it's been forming higher highs and higher lows, so that's why I'm not really that concerned about IWM. All right, moving on to a couple other stocks here, EOSE. And we're about up to the hour mark here. Let me just keep on crossing things here. EOSE, am I bullish on this chart? I am. let's see. So I drew the scan here, 360 and 1. And I don't really have a whole lot of price history here from the all-time low here, but I was looking through here. I was like, yeah, I got rejected here at the GAN. It would make sense because it's just had a hard time breaking about the weekly Ichimoku cloud, came back down, found support here at the horizontal GAN level as well as the Kijun here, bounced from that very strongly, and it's just been going up, right? Right now it's getting a little bit tired, but it could just end up slowly making its way up to 0.618, which I think naturally it probably would want to do. It did have a bearish engulfing candle, but I never really pay attention to that because it's on like lower volume. So it could just end up breaking through this bearish engulfing candle and just keep on going up higher to the next level, which is 0.618. It's going to be right there at the arc, right? I still see that being a potential level where it is probably going to end up hitting, right? And we'll see if it doesn't. Then if it ends up back testing 0.5, then that might be an area of support. Or if it ends up coming back down to the arc out here, that's going to be an area of support here as well. It's kind of stuck in limbo here. I would say if you bought lower, there's a hold. I would say if you bought higher and you're not sure, then if you want to sell, I don't blame you because it could go down lower, right? I just told you those levels. But if you're bullish about the fundamentals, you want to keep holding, yeah. It's getting closer to pretty key resistance here around 0.618. So for whatever that's worth, if you want to trade this, that might be the next level to look at. If you don't want to trade it, you just want to hold, then that's fine too, right? It's also holding the 0.316 here pretty perfectly, right? So it could be finding support here before further bullish continuation. How high do I think the stock's going to go? Well, it depends on whether or not it's an arc breaker, right? Broke above an arc. Is it going to break multiple arc this cycle? I don't know. It could. But looking at the monthly chart here, see whether or not that's a possibility. You just put the Bollinger Band here and you can see something very interesting here, which is trying to be very bullish, but it's just being hindered by it expanding Bollinger Band here to the upside and to the downside. So eventually, I think price is going to end up going higher, but it just had to simply come back down and touch the upper Bollinger Band here, which is why it ended up coming back down and touching the 0.136 fit level. That's pretty much it for that. It's looking pretty bullish. I'm not going to bet against it. I think if you end up getting into it, and if it gets up plumbing it down, it might be one of those stocks that might be a good idea to kind of lower up a little bit more because the trend looks like it's your friend and the trend looks like it's changing for the better. That's EOSE BP. BlackBerry Limited. Some people asking me about this stock. Do I think it's good? Well, there's a positive development here. Positive development is that is reclaiming the 20-month moving average. It's not a bad thing to have happen to you on increasing volume with that. So it's not a bad thing to have happen to you if that's something to that you think might be a little bit of a trend change here for a longer term. And the 20-month average also turning for a little bit negative sloping here, maybe getting flat here a little bit. The more time you spend above the 20-month moving average, the more likely it's going to turn flat, and the more likely you're going to end up reclaiming from resistance and support. Although right now it's kind of like a slide, right? A slippery slide. You got back above it, but you can also still slide down. You can even slide back underneath of it until this thing turns flat. So regardless, I do think that this is a positive trend because even looking at Tengen and Kijun, it's really flipping both of those or trying to flip both of those from resistance to support. Last month, they got rejected here at Kijun. So far, you are able to get above that despite the January market not being looking very, very good at all, which is also what I was talking about at the beginning of the show here. I think ARK fund is actually looking pretty decent, right? And this is one of those like risk-on behavior where BlackBerry is actually looking pretty decent. Now, I'm still gonna have a hard time. You ask me like if you ask a great Matt Speed, is this a good stock to get into? Well, it may not be because you're still not getting above this this higher high here. You still make it a lower high here, right? It's still a little bit of a bear trend until it gets above like 5.84 or something like that. Until it makes that higher high, it's still a little bit risky. It's still a higher. It's still a lower high. It's still a lower low, lower high type situation. It's still a bear trend. But if you ask me whether or not the bear trend has decelerated, I think the bear trend has really, truly decelerated. Because I do think that if you look at the 2 week here, I'm starting to see some bullish divergence that's being built up. Right? Price go down and RSI goes up. And that's how the bullish divergence is playing out over here. What do you have right now? You have a bearish divergence, right? Where you have price going down, but RSI going up, right? So you have a bearish divergence here being built up. So that's why you're losing a little bit of steam here. It might need to come down. I don't know if it's going to form a higher low or it's going to form a lower low. I don't know the answer to that. All I know is that at some point it will have to form a higher low, and I don't know how low it's going to be. It could be a lot higher from where it is. It can end up keep pushing up here above the cloud, right? Because it broke inside the weekly Ichimoku cloud, or actually a 2-week Ichimoku cloud. It's already broke through a little bit on the weekly Ichimoku cloud, right? If you ask me why did it have a hard time last month to break through, well, because you have the Kijun down here, and on the 2-week here, you have the Ichimoku cloud. Had a hard time breaking through. We'll see whether or not it get rejected here. If it doesn't get rejected, if it breaks through about the cloud, then you talk about potentially it just keeps on going a lot higher and then form a higher low later, and then have a potential continue to do some bullish continuation here. But right now, you're still having a little bit of restriction here. You're also getting a little bit about the upper bullish right here, even on weekly. So we'll see whether or not you're able to push through the cloud, right? At some point, again, I'm just going to emphasize that at some point you're going to need to form a higher low, and you are having some bearish divergence here. You are losing some momentum here a little bit. You can be losing some steam. I don't know how high this is going to go. It can end up going a lot higher, and then come back down, form a form a higher low, and that would be a fine thing. If it ends up going all the way up to this level over here to an equal high to 0.382, then and if it ends up holding a support here, then that's where it's going to go next, right? 0.382, which is $5.5. And once it gets to 0.382, it's going to need to form a higher low. I don't think it's just going to push to 0.382 like that. Just like here, I actually am a little bit skeptical whether or not it's going to push to the weekly Ichimoku cloud here. Just like that. If it does, then that's the level it's going to end up going. If it doesn't, then you're hoping that at least it goes sideways, hold the top of the cloud, or at least hold the 0.236 here, or at least you're hoping that it holds at least it holds the rising tangent here, which is going to be around like 3.1, 3.2. And by the time when it gets up here, it might be a lot higher. You hope that it holds, try and find some support, and then eventually it could push up higher. I am encouraged by a lot of things I'm seeing, but I do think that it has bottomed, most likely, right? But I just don't know where the high low is going to be and when that's going to be. And I just told you that the highest I think this trend can go is the 0.382 here, which is around $5.5. I do think that that's probably the highest that this leg up here can go. I'm not saying this is the highest that this stock can go, but that's probably how high it's going to go before it seriously finds a major correction or earlier. That's all. BlackBerry. XBI, been asking about this. I'm bullish on XBI. The reason why I'm bullish on XBI is because it got rejected from the cloud for so long, right? For a few months here. I think that XBI looks kind of like Mara. XBI looks kind of like Mara, where it's just kind of going consulting sideways here for about a whole year, working on those technicals. It's underneath a big giant Ichimoku cloud. The reason why it's so bad is because it plummeted all the way down here, right? All the way from like 180 all the way down to 60, right? Went down 66%. You have to have some major correction before really trying to push up a lot higher. Every single stock or ETF have kind of their personality. XBI looks like one of those things that it just wants to form like these arc, looks like it's going to roll over, but then it doesn't. Like that's what it looks like, So I'm not really that concerned about this current rolling over look kind of here. If I do like a fit level, it did break underneath the 0.382, which is not favorable. After getting rejected here at 0.5, we'll see whether or not we end up breaking above for that. But so far, it's still a bull trend, right? You're still like the 20-month moving average tells you that on average over the last 20 months, this is bullish. Right? It's pushing price up a lot higher. It's probably going to end up serving as support here, and that might be the support that you need to really try and push above to get to challenge the cloud up here again. And I think that in 2025 it's going to push into the cloud. All it has to go is to do sideways and it just gets into the cloud. I think 2025 is going to be the year where XBI finally convincingly breaks like $100. And I think it's probably going to get there, but it's just building up some energy to try and push through. That's all. How high do I think XBI can go? Well, it depends on what it does, right? Because I think that if it breaks inside the cloud, the strong resistance is going to be at the 0.618 here, which is $117, which is coincidentally at the top of the Ichimoku cloud, right? That's going to be also another strong level here. Once you break above, then 0.786, once you break about that, all-time high. But interesting, 0.618, like strong resistance level. After it breaks through the current resistance level, which is the Ichimoku cloud is 0.382. A lot of headwind to go through. Why am I bullish on XBI? It's because it's just spent way too much time here trying to break above a resistance level, and then come back down is forming a higher low compared to that. So that's kind of the reason why I'm thinking like it's got a little bit of an ascending triangle look to it, where the resistance up above is unchanged, but the supply, supply is unchanged, but the demand's increasing. So I feel favorable of the setup, and I think XBI is probably going to do pretty decent moving forward. All right, so I still only have maybe like 6 or 7 stocks request here before I take a break and then come back and talk about miners. I'm probably going to end the show after that. So the other requests here are pretty common stocks I get asked about, such as Celsius. Do I think Celsius has bottomed? I think it's close. I just don't think that it has necessarily. But there are a few criteria that I generally look for falling knife. One is to see whether or not there's any capitulation volume, and you bet your butt there's capitulation for Celsius holdings. Like you bet your butt there's huge capitulation with Celsius holdings. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's bottom, right? That's the tough part. And if I look off the volume here, so that criteria number 1 of catching a falling knife, check. Capitulation. People who wanted to sell, sold. Doesn't mean that everybody has sold. No, at some point, they're going to end up trying to find a little bit of a lower high here, and they might end up selling, and they might end up having price kind of plummeting down, and there's going to be a lot of people that just got tired holding it for the entire year, and they might end up selling even more. They might end up making a low. All those things are possible. But if you also look at the Gann chart here, you see how this Gann here has shown some pretty remarkable market symmetry, right? Angle, arc, angle, arc, right? And right now you broke through, you try to break about this angle here and just not able to break through, and you end up just plummeting back down here. And the next natural area for you to go to is to touch the arc. It hasn't touched the arc yet. I don't know where it's going to touch the arc. Is it going to touch the arc here? Is it going to touch the arc there? Is it going to touch the arc there? Is it even going to touch the arc at all? I don't know, but that's the natural order of things for it to do. You can do whatever the heck it wants to do as a stock, right? It doesn't have to follow what I think it's going to do. But we're also getting really, really close to the monthly Ichimoku cloud. And I've been talking about whenever prices up in the 30s and 40s, I was like, I'm not touching this thing. Like, there's no way I'm touching this thing. It can go all the way down to the 20s. You can go all the way down to like the low 20s and touch the cloud, right? And then try to find support there. And even if it touches cloud, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a V-shaped recovery. You have a lot of technical damage that I've done. That you probably need some time to kind of hover around here, trying to repair it a little bit. And you might even go inside the cloud. You may even go to the bottom of the cloud here at the low 20s. Did I test drive to lose it? I actually want to do that. Should I? Anyway, it goes all the way down. It could go. You can keep going down lower, right? Because that's the thing. Like for a falling knife, it can look like it's hugely decelerated, but I still haven't seen any sign for any like bearish or any bullish divergence to really get me feel very, very confident that this thing has bottomed. I just haven't really seen that. So if I take off the Gann here, if I do the RSI here on the weekly, yeah, maybe at least I have a little bit of bullish divergence here building. On the 2-week chart here, I'm not really seeing any like convincing bullish divergence. So like if I can't see bullish divergence, I still a little bit hesitant to get into a stock, because like not every single stock has that bullish divergence before it reverses, and not every single stock have bullish divergence that just immediately just result in it reversing upwards. But I would minimally want to see something like that here. You can see that it's been going up on bearish divergence, right? Where does it get you? Nowhere, right? So I just, when you see this move up, that's an exhaustive move up here. That tells you that's a little bit of a warning sign here. Here you can see this is a little bit warning sign. Price goes up on exhaustive move. It did plummet down here a lot, right? And here same thing. Price go up, exhaustive move. It just ended up plummeting down a whole lot more, right? But the whole thing is also gone up here on hidden bullish diversions, where the price went up a lot more and the RSI trend down a lot more. So regardless, depends on your time frame. Do I think I want to get into Celsius here? Probably not. I'm going to keep watching it. What my expectation is, I don't have any expectation. My expectation is probably going to at some point form a higher low here. No, sorry, a lower high here. And lower high can surprise you. It can even push all the way up to like 30s and 40s, and, you know, you had like the big giant 20, 30, 40% move one day or 1 week, and they get rejected and they come back down. I can see that happening. I've seen this stuff like happening over and over again. So I don't really want to play that psychological game. I don't really want to trade that move, so I'm not going to play it. That's Celsius. Yeah, I'm gonna test drive the Lucid, but I just got a Tesla. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Um, Soundhound. Somebody asked me about Soundhound. Pretty bullish chart, higher highs, higher lows. And I was asked, I think like it was Diane who asked me whether or not I find Soundhound to be attractive. I think she probably asked me like right around here, around like $15. I was like, yeah, maybe, but it's a resistance. And then she was like, oh, okay. And the next thing you know, probably just kind of gone up to like 23, $24, got close to 1.4 and 4, you know, oops, right? That's why you don't bet against momentum. And that's why, you know, when momentum stops, you can have some pretty brutal move here. And that's exactly what's happening to Soundhound. I don't like to chase. You know, if I'm to buy, I usually buy like a reaccumulation zone like this, like that. I feel comfortable buying here. So we'll see whether or not if it's able to hold. If next week end up going down further and break the arc and go down further, then so be it. Then it just hovers back. Then the next level is going to be 11.5. Or if it ends up closing, it ends up being back above the 0.76 here, which is $14.46. Then it just gets stuck inside the arc here. It might end up just consolidating down here in the arc here, or it might end up just bringing down to the arc, consolidating below at the 0.618 here, hang out here a little bit before pushing up again, right? But this is a higher compared. This is a higher low here. However low it goes, it's going to be a higher low. So I feel that this is still very much a bull trend. Does it have to come all the way down to 0.5 here, back test that zone? I don't think so. A lot of people always like whenever something like expands like this, I don't think it has to go down that much further, test some of the stuff down underneath. But a lot of people think that that has to be the case. I just never really think that that has to be the case. What is it doing so far, though? Could this level hold? It could. The reason why is because it's just simply way outside the monthly upper Bollinger Band, right? And it's just simply have back test the, well, not back test necessarily, but it gravitates to the upper Bollinger Band. Unless if the Bollinger Band continue expands a lot, which it hasn't yet. In general, I still think that it needs to kind of come back and back test that upper Bollinger Band to make sure that it's, you know, good food and ground. And sometimes when it does that, it really loses a lot of momentum and it just kind of goes sideways here for a couple of months or a few months. Like MicroStrategy did that, right? MicroStrategy did that for what, like 6 months or 7 months or something like that, right? Where it pushed things just way outside of the Bollinger Band. The next month came back down, get back inside Bollinger Band here. But throughout this move here, it lost a lot of momentum. It just ended up going sideways here a little bit longer. Here, it didn't really end up doing that. Here, it just ended up pushing up and it got rejected. And it just came back down, got back inside the upper Bollinger Band here. Everybody got super scared. It was going to go a lot lower. And next thing you know, next month just kind of pushing up like that, right? So if you ask me, what Soundhound going to do? Is it going to do one of those two moves? I don't know. I don't think anybody's really going to be able to tell you that. All I know is that it's just been way too far, way too fast, and it's just consolidating sideways here a little bit. And I just kind of show you what the possibilities are. It could either, I'm going to be very clear, which is not clear at all. It could either hold the arc here and just kind of hang around the arc here a little bit for maybe a couple months before pushing up higher, or it could break down to 0.618 here, hang around here. It has a very unlikely scenario, but plausible scenario, go down to 0.5 here, which is this previous breakout zone over back to the level, and just kind of, you know, hover around here, form a higher low here before going up further. But so far, I just don't think that it has to go down that much further. It probably just need to consolidate here, at least for a few weeks, if not for a few months, to push up higher. That's kind of what I'm seeing, because it's still a higher low type situation. Soundhound. Or could it be one of those like Mara situation where things just get really parabolic move, everybody got super euphoric, and next thing you know, it like goes sideways for a year? I don't know. Okay. I don't know. But those are the levels to kind of watch out for. AVGO. Hey, Nicholas. Welcome. AVGO is a stock that just continues to define expectation and to look very bullish over time. And the truth is, this is also one of the stocks that just keeps on carrying the whole market, right? Is it a great look to have things just way outside the upper Bollinger Band? Maybe. Stocks don't like that though, so they have to come back and touch the upper Bollinger Band again the next month, right? That's exactly what Palantir is doing, by the way. Like, I can talk about a little bit about Palantir, but I always talk about Palantir, so, that's exactly what it's doing, by the way, just come back test that zone. So I'm not really, it's like, whatever. I don't it's something that is necessary for it to do. I think when you're looking at a chart like this, you're always thinking, "Is this the top? Is this the top? Is this the top? Is there a way to look for that?" The answer is nobody really knows for sure, but I'm gonna try, right? How will I try? I'm gonna look at the RSI here. I'm gonna look for signs for maybe a little bit of a bearish divergence here. I do see a little bit of bearish divergence here from this move up, right? I do see that, right? Is this trend exhausted? Is this the parabolic move up that will end up exhausting it all? Maybe, maybe not. I think probably not, because sometimes you can have these kind of bearish diversions up here that can just keep on going up for a very long time. And price just doesn't plummet that much further. It can just correct sideways here for a very long time, wait for the 20-month moving average to catch up, right? Kind of like how it did over here. And RSI just plummets all the way down from like 90s all the way down to like the 60s, where price just simply do nothing, right? I think that we might be getting close to that scenario where it has to kind of cool down sideways and do nothing here, because it's just a little bit overextended. It might defy gravity and just keep going up higher, but I think the likely scenario is for it to kind of go sideways here, wait for the Tengen here to catch up too, right? Last time it went way outside of Tengen. What happened? Went sideways for 6 months, right? Over here, right? Boom, brr, boom, brr, boom, brr. And it just keeps on making these staircase up, right? And even here, went way outside of Tengen here, above the blue line, what did it do? Nothing for 8 months, right? So I think it probably have some sideways price action here to correct the RSI. If not correct a little bit through price, I think it's possible for it to get down underneath. I don't even have foot levels for this. I think it's possible to get underneath to like the 190s to 200 range. Maybe it gets down to 180s. I don't know. I don't think it has to do that. But it's probably going to either correct through sideways through time or through price. That's AVGO. But overall, if given the element of time, this stock has been a great performer. I think it's probably going to end up pushing up higher. A lot of funds love it. So a lot of buying pressure here for AVGO. I think it's going to do okay. Uber is a tough one. I look at Uber. It's a tough one for me to think about. I don't know if I want to get into Uber based on some things I see. But if you just don't use any indicators here at all, you just look at a chart here. I think it's a big chart back here that's been going sideways here for about a year. And you have a little bit of inside candle here, which, sometimes it can be a reversal. Sometimes it could be continuation. It's hard for me to say for sure. But this big giant bull flag over here, I can't really ignore that. But sometimes you have a bull flag here in the monthly, could also signal like trend change too, right? I get a little bit worried about Uber. The reason why is because I don't like it when things have a trend change from being very, very bullish to kind of back testing here a little bit. But so is AMD, right? AMD even broke underneath the 20-month moving average, and even for Uber, it's still up sloping. So there's still a possibility if Uber can hold and just bounce back up and change the momentum here, correct the size momentum, and actually build momentum to the upside, then you can correct the fate of what happened over here. I worry about it having a little bit of trend change where it's touching the 20-month moving average here a little bit too much and just breaks down. I worry about that possibility for Uber. It's not 2021. We don't have that liquidity crunch environment anymore. We also don't have all these wicks up here above anymore to say, yeah, I think parties are probably over. We don't have any of that stuff over here. It's a little bit more like ABC correction here, but I just can't guarantee it's not going to go down lower. So I'm a little bit conflicted here, to be completely honest with you. I think that if I just simply look at the Ichimoku, it did break up off the monthly Ichimoku. It's just kind of hanging out in space here, hanging out in the range, broke down underneath the Tengen, right? Which is, again, a little bit more worrisome for me. I really like to see it reclaiming the Tengen here a little bit, but it's a very, very tough stock for me to think about. It did end up breaking the 1.414. Ran up breaking through and touched the 1.414 here multiple times. Was not able to break above. It was kind of stuck in range here for a little bit, and then it did break down, touched the 0.786, got a pretty decent demand here. Is that going to double tap it here down in 0.786? I think it's possible. I think that would be the final draw. Like if it breaks down underneath the 0.786, then I would be like a lot more worried about the stock. So that's kind of what I think. It's a tough one. I can't really say that. Also, don't like that it keeps on breaking underneath the price, underneath our support band, and then it just makes a little bit of a high, right? But it keeps on breaking underneath of that, and it's like back testing it as resistance. So I don't know. It's also tough to just look at this. This is a higher high here compared to that, and this is a higher low here compared to that. It's a tough one, man. I don't know. I'm not gonna get into it. I don't see a good setup here. I'm not gonna get into it. That's what I say. Adobe is my next one. ADBE. Ooh, okay. I haven't looked at Adobe for a very long time. Let me get rid of all this stuff here and just kind of look at it raw. A little bit of ABC, a little bit of a lower low here compared to there. It has yet to form a higher high here compared to that. Initially, I think I'll look at the Ichimoku. It held the Ichimoku here perfectly, but now it's broken underneath the monthly Ichimoku. Yeah, this January candle is crazy. It broke down underneath the monthly Ichimoku here. It was holding in December. It just broke. Oh, man. Well, guess what? It's touching a low Bollinger Band. That tells me I don't think price is going to go down that much further in the short run. I don't think it's going to keep plummeting down. But the Bollinger Band could end up expanding and it could end up going down a little bit further, right? When I see something like this, I look at RSI here. I'm not seeing any bullish divergence here on different time frames. That's a tough one. I'm not seeing any bullish divergence here on all these different time frames here. Broken down underneath the 2-week Ichimoku, broken down underneath the weekly Ichimoku. Wow. Okay. Yeah, you got a lot of resistance up here above now. All right. Zooming back out here. Looking another one that I usually look at when I see something like this is unbalanced volume. I want to see if there's any bullish diversions, if there's any secret buying pressure. I'm not seeing it. I think they're selling it. Yeah, I'm not seeing any bullish divergence here for me to feel too good about it, except for the fact it's touching a low Bollinger Band here on the monthly. Look at the fit level. You can try to guess that. I'm gonna, yeah, I have a whole can here. It broke down underneath my can level here too, which is not good. Broke down underneath the 0.382. It could go down to 0.236, which is $375. And right now we have like a little bit of a Marubasu candle, so it can go down that much further. It's possible. It broke underneath a very important zone here. It's forming a higher low. I don't know how. No, it's forming a lower low. I don't know how low that lower low is going to go. I don't think it has to hit the 0.382 this month, but it could hit it the next month or the month after that. It's got a lot of momentum. The selling candle last month was extremely high volume, and something's weird about the stock. So I would probably, if I want to catch this falling knife, I would probably catch it around 0.3236, around $375. I think a lot of people are also looking at that zone. But it doesn't have to, because it could very much, if this is a false breakdown, it could very much end up holding the low Bollinger Band and close the month above of it, and maybe start to kind of reverse it, back test it, assuming it's not a bearish back test. Then it could break back out above, but I don't see a favorable setup here. So yeah, that's Adobe. I did not know that. I thought it was, the last time I charted was a few months ago, and it was looking great because it bounced right off the Ichimoku and it's bounced right off the 0.382, and it was like a perfect back test here. I thought it was going to go higher, but it just didn't make that higher high here. So yeah, that's what happens with stocks sometimes. LTCN, somebody requested this, then I will look at that. Yeah, I want to say, Sam, that the Mara dilution, I think that news broke out during business hours, during trading hours. It didn't really move the stock at all. And I wonder if it's going to be one of those like dilution news, and now they're being viewed as more similar to MicroStrategy with their hodling strategy. Whether or not it's kind of going to be viewed as that. and there might be like seriously becoming a little bit more like a Bitcoin proxy. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm going to look at miners here after taking a little bit of a break because I've been going on for about an hour and a half now. But this is LTCN, the last request that I have on my list here before talking about miners. And it's kind of broken underneath the 0.382 here. I have a hard time breaking back above, which is unfortunate. It's also underneath the Tenkan Kijun here on the monthly. Now on the weekly here is still also underneath resistance here, right? Initially, I was hoping that it would touch the cloud here after it broke through, but it ended up not doing that. It just ended up forming a little bit of a low high here, and it broke back underneath and it's trying to break through 0.32. And it's having a hard time doing that. Now, with the fact that I think altcoins are going to probably do pretty well moving forward, I think that this LTCN, which is Grayscale Litecoin Trust, probably going to end up doing pretty decent. I like that it's kind of hovering underneath the Bollinger Support Band, is trying to break back above, and now it's still hovering around it. I like the fact that it's flat. And I like the fact that it's challenged at 0.32 here for a very long time. So it's probably going to break above. It's probably going to end up pushing back above and probably challenge the weekly cloud here around like 24, 25 bucks. But it's still underneath resistance, right? So yeah, we'll see. This is one of those that it's hard because I think it's forming a higher high here, it's forming a higher low here. And right now it's kind of struggling for that higher high. It's got a lot of resistance here above, so I would say that it's hard for me to say for sure, right? It's also broken underneath the 20-month moving average here a little bit, although it's still positively sloping. I still lean a little bit more bullish on this. I still think it's probably going to break through and get to like 24, 25 again. And if you look at the higher time frame here, like this really hasn't even looked like it's trying to form a high yet, right? I can't say that this is like the lower high here because that was just a wick. We'll see how it goes. We'll see whether or not it ends up just making that lower high or higher high and then take it from there. But looking at the weekly, it looks like it wants to break through this resistance here. If it does, then, you know, because this downtrend here is also on low volume. If it does, then I think that it could go up to like the 24, 25 range, somewhere up here. Maybe a little bit of double top. We'll see. You know, be a little bit careful on that. If you ask me about Litecoin, whether or not it can make an all-time high, I have not really been that bullish on Litecoin, to be honest with you, because I just don't really see that the risk reward is necessarily there, because it's just every single cycle, it just looks like it's not the favorite coin here, you know. It just doesn't really look like it's something that the funds want, you know. It's been bouncing off of here from arc to arc, but it's just not really having that momentum to break out. So I don't know. Like, it looks like this here looks like it wants to break above the cloud, but didn't really. Here we're hitting a cloud resistance here. We're basically going through the same thing as we did last cycle, right? It could break above the cloud a little bit, but I'm not sure if that's. Yeah, I'm not gonna be that bullish on Litecoin in terms of like making some crazy all-time high stuff like that until it proves me otherwise, right? Until it really truly proves me otherwise, I'm not gonna want to put my money in Litecoin. The only scenario that I see that's bullish for Litecoin is this, and yeah, and it's a dinosaur coin. It's also not participating with the rally together with XRP, together with XLM. So I'm a little bit skeptical. The only thing is maybe this is a strong reaccumulation here. Maybe this is an ascending triangle. Maybe it's going to hit up here. Maybe it's going to break through backtest and go higher. That's the only bullish scenario that I see. But I just don't see like the catalyst, and I don't see the strength for Litecoin. So I'm not going to hold my breath on waiting for all-time high Litecoin. Guys, I'm going to go and take a break, drink some fluids, and I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back. I'm going to continue to push through all the miners, and I'm going to call this a day. I'll be back. It is time for the miners. On yesterday's live stream, I talked about MSTR, I talked about Coinbase. So today I'm going to just focus on miners and just call it a day because it's already been close to the 2-hour mark. I just wanted to let you guys know that in terms of the metrics, I think the sentiment is just absolutely horrible out there, which is also part of the reason why I hesitate to like make a living off of doing this or whatever. I mean, I just trade and invest in stocks. It's okay. Like I don't need to do that. But I can imagine, just to kind of tell you, like the business side of things. I In November when things were looking really well, I think my live stream had up to maybe like over 100. Like I think the max is like simultaneously I have like 120, 130 people watching at the same time. Right now, I think I got maybe like 34. Um, the sentiment has really drastically shifted, and I think the sentiment shift is like absolutely necessary for us to go higher, in terms of like the markets, in terms of stocks, in terms of crypto, in terms of everything else. It's getting set up to be something a little bit, a little bit interesting. I'm just going to kind of leave it as that. But yeah, I'll just go through all of this miners here because I think they're extremely difficult to chart because they're so volatile and because there's so much extraneous factors. And I find a lot of times even like altcoins a lot easier to chart and pick up where things are, because there aren't so many like different complicated factors trying to manipulate and things like that. And because it's just a lot easier to chart the other stuff than miners. Miners has been extremely difficult. I like the challenge. I also am in them because I still think that they're a pretty decent play for 2025. I could be wrong because all the macro fears are coming back again. I'm just gonna say where there is just a lot of bad sentiment out there, but I'm seeing a lot of things at support. So I'm going to show you all the things that I'm seeing here with the miners, and I'm going to also talk about a lot of people have like that have been really extremely bullish here for CleanSpark when it was outperforming Bitcoin throughout the entire 2023 to early 2024. A lot of people are finally capitulated, like they've just really been capitulated. Very bitter, trying to find somebody to blame, and they're really extremely sad. I feel bad for them, and they are maybe they're doing like short dated options, things like that. If you do options on miners, you're basically playing a derivative on Bitcoin. Bitcoins are already a volatile asset, right? And this is a derivative of Bitcoin, and it's not even necessarily following Bitcoin's price action because these are stocks and they actually have pull from a different liquidity pool. They also basically also follow more the small caps liquidity pool. If anything, they're small cap stocks, right? And on top of that, they also follow more sentiment. If Bitcoin sentiment is extremely euphoric, then miners are going to be extremely euphoric. Bitcoin sentiment has not been that extremely euphoric even after it got to like 100,000. So miners actually have been just kind of like, yeah, there are a lot of things that are just kind of setting up, and it makes me think that hey, maybe we're anyway. If I talk about miners now, I'm just gonna sound crazy because everything's just go downtrend like for a whole year and blah 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 blah. Well, yeah, I mean these are it's stocks. They don't have to do what I tell them to do. Like they just go do what they're gonna do. And what the best we can do is we all we can say is hey, something has happened. You can reassess and see whether or not this is an area you want to sell, to buy back, whether or not this like that can be also extremely stressful, right? I rather play cycle. I'll tell you, like this is CleanSpark. I bought here. I bought at the lower range over here, right? At the mid teens, and also bought down here at the single digits, right? I'm done buying. Like I could buy more here if I'm just like I want to buy something else. Right now, if you're my member, I told you what I'm buying. I'm probably gonna make another members video later tonight or maybe tomorrow, to kind of update you on that. But the whole thing is, I just there are a lot of things just pointing out to me that I'm just like, what like the stars are aligned here. Either they're aligned for me to be an idiot and it just plummets all the way down and like we're to find like this is like the final chance for you to get out, or that the sentiment is just so horrible and you're finding some pretty decent support here on multiple levels, and it's just been squeezing and it's forming a fractal like I did before, that we might end up just not sucking from here. Zooming in here a little bit, CleanSpark weekly chart, again ARK, right? Without showing you again ARK, I'm just going to show you this here real quick. You have the Bullish support band. The Bullish support bands consist of a 20-week and 21-week, SMA and EMA. It forms a band. Generally, it's a pretty decent support on the way up. It doesn't always have to. It can break down underneath of that. As long as it's flipping it to a little bit more flat, you can easily break above and just go higher. It's done that fractal here. Like I think that the 100-week moving average is also shown here on the black. And for whatever reason, CleanSpark love the 100-week moving average. Resistance here, support here, resistance here, resistance here, right? Support, support, right? So you've had resistance flipped and support based on technical analysis. That generally is a very bullish thing, right? So I'm going to lean bullish here. On top of that, you have kind of broken down underneath the 20-week moving average or the support band. Challenged it once, wasn't able to hold, came back down, back tested 100 again, and holding, right? You're really having a lot more conviction here. You're flushing out the final people that are like the tourists or whatever. You have these kind of like a little bit more high volume capitulation here. And now you're down here, you've just been hanging down here on support at low volume. That to me, I think it's a good sign. It's been stuck in a range here between the 20 and the 100-week moving average. It's been building up energy, and I think because this is a little bit of higher low here compared to that, it's just basically been consolidating into a big giant symmetrical wedge, right? That's all this thing has been doing, right? So it's towards the end of the wedge. I think it's going to have to make a decision one way or another, but it's at support, right? Based on looking at this. And I'm also going to look at my GAN here. I have all these arrows here. The reason why I have all these arrows here is because I think that this is like a greater fractal compared to this little head and shoulder continuation pattern here. This could be another head and shoulder continuation pattern here. Because over here, what did we do last time? Well, we were kind of hovering underneath the Bull support band right here a little bit. And then we just push through, right? I think that this area down here with the double bottom of here is very similar to this double bottom of here. This whole thing is just like a bigger fractal compared to that. That's what it looks like to me. You're just trying to break through the like flattening Bull support band. That's exactly what we're trying to do over here as well, right? And we're building up a lot of energy. Next thing you know, if it pushes through, it just pushes through and it just drags it up all the way up. If you don't believe that Bitcoin has topped, if you don't think that you think that IWM is going to eventually make its all-time high, then I think this is going to do okay, right? If you also take away Bull support band, you just look at the GAN here. What it's been really doing is breaks above multiple arcs here. It broke through the arc here, got rejected, came back tested the angle, back tested the arc here, held, pushed through two other arcs, came back tested the arc, pushed through two other arcs, and that's kind of how this whole lick ends, right? Now you came back test, just came back down to one arc here, back test the angle, then you're trying to break through this arc here, still not building up enough energy to do so. Come back test the arc over here. The exact same thing is happening here, is exactly happening here, right? It's just been bouncing arc, and then it's just trying to push through, right? It's just been bouncing arc, and it's just trying to push through. So it's building up energy, it's having a hard time doing it. But I think that we might be at a juncture where I find this to be more and more favorable setup moving forward. That's all I have to say. I think that if you're looking at the higher time frame, it does get a little bit scary here because it's just been wedging and it's a little bit directionless. And it's stuck underneath some pretty strong resistance here, right? The monthly Ichimoku clouds got rejected here for the entire year. And even support down below, you're losing that down here a little bit. Like the 20-month moving average is kind of becoming a little bit more flat. It's not as exponential as it was before. And right now you kind of broken underneath of that. It's kind of a little bit of resistance here, right? You have a little bit of bearish engulfing candle here, by the way. But, you know, again, I'm never really believe in like bearish engulfing candle in isolation. That's never really anything that I'm like going to be super horny about. You can see sometimes it overshoots here a little bit. Sometimes it undershoots here a little bit. To me, that doesn't matter as much. I'm going to smooth it. You're going to laugh at me. I'm going to do a 6-week chart. And that really helps smooths out the resistance and support level here significantly, right? For whatever reason, you have to go to a moving average that fits the stock the most. And for some reason, 6-week actually turns to be like the 100-week moving average. Six week, the basis of the 6-week bullish band tends to work out pretty well as resistance and support, right? It works out extremely well. It's just like the 100-week moving average. So and right now it's still up pointing. So I think it's just hovering around the zones, just trying to find support here. It's trying to do its thing. I think that right now overall I still think this is more of like a cup and handle type situation. You can say that this is all a cup and handle type situation. It just end up breaking down. I just want to remind you that CleanSpark was not a miner. It was not a Bitcoin miner until December of 2020. So I think that a lot of the price action, even the Ichimoku cloud, it may not apply as much moving forward, just because it's a fundamentally completely different company compared to before. So, and I also think that there's also a theory that why was everybody so euphoric all the way from like $1.70, $1.70, $1.80, all the way up here in 24, 25? Because once it finds support down here, once it decides it doesn't want to go down anymore, the biggest resistance level is going to be at the cloud. So it's going to get all the way to the cloud. And that's what got everybody really bullish, right? And once you get to the cloud over here, is at a stop sign, and the kid's going crazy. Like, where are we? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And the kid's basically like dying here. And everybody's just tired of hearing the kid complaining. But overall, like, this is actually something that makes sense and is correcting sideways over here. Like, you're just basically building up a lot of energy to try and push through this level, and that took a whole year to do it. But anyway, I'm done talking about CleanSpark. I probably talk a little bit too much about that. Let's talk about Mara. I can talk about targets. I can talk about like higher level targets. But if I talk about those targets now, I think I'm just going to sound crazy. Why don't we see whether or not we're able to get the bull trend going first, and then we can talk about the targets above, right? I'm just trying to build a case here that these stocks still look relatively decent to me. And it's not just from the pure technical analysis standpoint, because these are extremely difficult to chart. Like, I think I'll talk to any chartist, and like they pretty much like a lot of really great ones have been burned. And you're talking about charts, they can chart like altcoins, they can chart like stocks and things like that without any problems. And this has just been throwing off a lot of people. 20-month moving average is still claiming that. It's still serving as support, right? If you're talking about the Ichimoku, it's still underneath the Ichimoku. I think that it did end up getting rejected here back in November. I think it probably going to re-challenge that sometime around Q1 of 2025, depending on how Bitcoin does, right? You are serving as a little bit of resistance here, but I don't think that's really that big of a deal, because I think it's just stuck between the Super Ichi taking the kitchen. It did actually end up getting rejected here at the bottom of the Super Ichi cloud here in January. It's been rejected once, twice, and 3 times. Spitting up some energy. It's just stuck in the range. That's all I can really say about, like, Mara. If I look at the weekly chart here, I mean, it's already tested the 100-week moving average, right? Support, resistance, support. I thought that there's a chance for it back tested again, like it did with CleanSpark. It didn't. So relatively speaking, this is a little bit more bullish than CleanSpark, because you can also just feel the sentiment and all that. It's been trying to reclaim our support band. It's just been oscillating around that for like the entire year. A little bit trendless, but that's okay. I just think that this whole thing right here, this whole zone right here, between here, which is like a strong support level because of how it reacted over here as resistance into support, and you also have a level over here, which was also a very strong like resistance support level. It's just stuck in between these two range here for a very long time. And when it breaks one way or the other, it's going to be extremely powerful. And based on the higher time frame, I still think that it favors to the upside. So I still think that Mara to the moon to after that is going to be Mars. After that, it's going to be Jupiter. After that, it's going to be Uranus. And then after that, it's going to meet the Klingons. Maybe they're going to meet the Klingons at Uranus. I don't know. Sorry, Uranus. I don't know. I don't know. But I'm not bearish here based on what I'm looking at, because I still think that this is just a big consolidation. This is just a big reaccumulation. If you look at the Fintel data, it's also going to tell you that the institution has been buying here. Dilution actually hasn't really been that big of an issue here. If you actually look at the dilution numbers, it really, like, Mara's not going down because of dilution. Mara's going down because of shorts. Mara's been having a hard time to go up because of shorts. I don't think anybody's really selling. So, yeah, so we'll see. Just I don't know what else to say. We'll see. It's really truly like the first. There really hasn't been that much history, because I think Mara wasn't really like a Bitcoin miner until like 2019. So the history really is more like whenever IWM went up like beast mode in November and break out all-time high, that's when Mara really started running. IWM really hasn't really done that yet. right? So I can see why Mara's just like it doesn't have the liquidity to push through it. Like the shorts are not closing yet because the liquidity pool is just not there to like to push through quite just yet. Um, but yeah, like November gives you a little bit of a taste in terms of what could happen. So um, yeah, but that's kind of what I'm thinking about Mara. I'm going to go through the rest of them really quickly here. Bitfarms, I'm going to put out the weekly here. It's stuck in a range. I have nothing else to say about it. It's lagging behind Mara. It's one of the biggest laggers of miners ever, right? And it's been stuck between these. It's wedging between these two arcs here, down and down and down. I really have nothing else to say about it. You know, it's touching a lower Bollinger Band here, which is part of the reason why I don't think it has to go down that much further. But you do have a little bit of negative sloping Barrage support band here that could potentially serve as resistance, right? You're also underneath the angle here, and it's still stuck between these two arcs. I don't know what it's going to do. All I know is that it's in the range. Yeah, it's in the bottom of the range. And when it's in the bottom of the range, I keep on holding. I did end up selling some bit farms, I think like right around like 1.7, 1.8, something like that, to buy GME with it. Just because I see like, some better risk reward ratio for that. That's really the only miner that I've really sold for like the entire year of 2024. So I end up doing that. I'm glad I did that. The rest of them I can hold. I don't care. It's at the bottom of the range. I'm just gonna let it do its thing. It did end up on the monthly here. It's not looking that great because it did, end up breaking underneath the 20-month moving average. Like this is one of the biggest laggards there is, and I can't really justify the price action here that much, with the exception that it's just, still kind of consolidating here sideways. And I still think that there's some institution that has been leaving Bitfarms here. I think Riot probably end up selling Bitfarms or whatever. But yeah, but it is what it is. It's at the bottom of a range. I'm just going to leave it be until it flips bullish. I'm not going to talk about higher targets here. One is still a bullish chart to me is CIFR. I just looking at like the monthly chart here, I just cannot really get bearish on it. It just keeps on looking. It wants to ride up the upper Bollinger Band on the way up. The 20-month moving average continues to point up here. This is one reason why like WGMI, which is like the miner index, like it looks like it's on the up and up because of miners like this, right? Because of miners like IREN, because of miners like WULF. Those are kind of helping that. But on the weekly chart here, you can see what it's really doing. It's just basically trying to push through the 0.786 here, having a hard time doing it. Come back down, try and grab some liquidity, trying to grab some energy, trying to push through. So what did it do? It broke through an arc, came back to this arc after I got rejected here at a very important FIB level. Holding well, right? Holding well. Try and push through about the angle here, having a hard time. So what did it do? Came back and back test the arc here again. And it looks like it's probably going to end up holding pretty well. It's a support. So it's going to keep on, maybe going up back to 0.786 here is kind of what I'm thinking. A lot of them are support. Surely Cleanstar is support. Mara is relatively on support. Even Bitfarm is at support. CIFR is at support, right? IREN, same story. Got rejected at the ARK, got rejected at 0.786. Hang out in space here. Where does it find support at? But support band, right? It's finding support here, but support band that's rising. And I think that it could use that as energy to kind of push back the 0.786 and challenge the ARC up here again. Yeah, we'll see. I'm still bullish on IREN. Wolf has been a little bit of scary here, but I do think he's got a little bit of a tweezer bottom over here. I do think that it's trying to push and try to find support here at the ARC, but having a hard time doing so far. I think it's got rejected here at 0.786 here. There was a possibility for it to come back to 0.5. I've had somebody who like commented on my post saying, "Oh, there's no support until it gets to like $5. Stop thinking about the bar support band, whatever." I think it's possible, but I just don't like their tone. Like they're so absolute about it. It just makes me feel like I just wanted to find support before it touches $5. And the lower it goes, so far it's 5.09. So I hope they're wrong, just because they're being like absolutist about it. If they're not, then I think it could potentially touch the 0.5 FIB level, which is not a scary thing because it's basically just back testing this previous resistance zone over here as support, and it's forming a higher low here. So I'm not really that scared about Wolf. Overall, it's still a pretty decent bull trend. So yep, that's Wolf for you. Not going to talk about targets until it really truly breaks out 0.618, right? BTBT, what is it doing? It's stuck, but again, I think the good thing about BTBT is is that really it's been, even though this looks like it's done nothing over like the whole year, it really did end up breaking above a pretty important resistance trend line here, and it's basically back testing it almost perfectly, right? And it's also trying to break through the zero point 0.5 here for a long time. It's trying to break through this arc here for a very long time, and I think it's building enough energy to do so. Like the shorts keeps on pushing it underneath the zero point 0.5, keep pushing it underneath the arc here, but they're having a little bit of a hard time doing it over time. So I still think that this is a relatively a bullish chart here. It's just oscillating around the support band here. It's a little bit trendless. There's a lot of shorts. There's a lot of shorts. I don't know what else to say. It's trying to reclaim the Ichimoku cloud here, right? It's trying to reclaim the Ichimoku cloud here, but you still have a little bit of resistance up above. It's just stuck in a range, but building up energy to push through. Higher time frame, it's still reclaiming the 20-month moving average. Is still doing what it needs to do. But yeah, I'm not bearish on it because it's still forming higher highs and higher lows, right? I mean, I'm just going to keep watching it. CORZ, I'm also going to keep buying it, by the way. I think BTBT, honestly, I think anything that's under like $4 or $5 is a pretty good opportunity for me. You can certainly choose whatever you want to do, but I still think that the bullish thesis for BTBT is still intact. It did have a bullish cross here. I do think that it's probably going to hit the bottom of the cloud here sometime in 2025, and we'll see how it reacts. Big giant cloud here, though, right? I don't know if it's going to just get rejected here and that's the end of the cycle, or it just ends up pushing the top of the cloud over here, which, again, if you look at a lot of these kinds of charts here, whenever you push to the top of the clouds, usually it's close to 0.786. So that could be a cycle ender, or it can push through and just make like all-time highs. I don't know what it's going to do, but it's too early for me to say right now, just because it's trying to do its thing. So CORZ is easy because there's not a whole lot of price history here. What it's really been doing is it's been breaking through the arc here, backtesting the arc and holding support here, but support band. It still looks pretty decent. I'm just going to say that it looks pretty decent here. RIOT, it's trying to break through the arc here. RIOT is one of the more bullish charts here, actually, is finally doing something. Maybe it's because they stopped buying bit farms. I don't know what the heck they're doing, but it's finally flipping pretty bullish here, because it's stuck between the arc here that's trying to break for like the entire year and a half. And it's also using the support band here to try to build enough energy to try and push through, right? It's pouring higher high here, it's pouring higher low here, it's trying to push through the arc here. We'll see if it pushes through. If it pushes through the arc, then it's going to go through maybe the horizontal level up here in the 20s, right? It can easily double in a hurry if it ends up working out as technicals here. Actually, I like RIOT. I never thought that I would say that for a very long time. It just looked like a dog, but it came back tested again, level down here, found support. And right now, it really is seriously trying to challenge the arc up here. So that's why I think about RIOT. HUD, trying to break about the 0.618, having a hard time doing so, but it's trying to get above the arc over here. So it's a support, right? It's a support, right? A lot of these miners are support. HIVE, how's it doing? It's just trendless. I don't know, like, it's just been hovering around Ichimoku. It's not doing too much. It's just been oscillating around the support band. It's just not doing too much until it starts showing me a trend. I just think it's dead money. For now, it's also kind of trying to turn a 20-month moving average flat. Looks like it was initially having a little bit of life to it, but December kind of killed it, and it's just kind of hovering around underneath here. So I don't know what it's trying to do. BitDR is one of those that is just like, whoa, pushed up a lot. Where's it doing? Way outside the upper Bollinger Band. It had to come back test the upper Bollinger Band, make sure it's not too overextended. Right now, the price is right at the upper Bollinger Band here, so it's expanding downwards. I don't think the trend is over. I still think that BitDR is still relatively bullish. If you look at a weekly, it did break down underneath my initial thought in terms of what the support level could be, which is going to be right up here at the arc. I thought it was going to break up the arc, and maybe it's just kind of consolidating sideways here through time, build energy before going higher, but it decided to correct through price so far for the first week of January. Or the second week of January, and it just came down all the way down here. A little bit of a macrophone kind of consolidation here, and I could go down all the way down to the one here, to the IPO high over here, around $14.75. It could do that, or it could go down to a little bit lower to the arc down here below around 13.3. But because it is just basically finding support at the upper Bollinger Band here on the monthly because it wanted to just not get overextended. I don't know when it's going to do that. It did have a tweezer top on a monthly, so there might be some bearish continuation. You might end up having some consolidation here. Even if the rest of the miners do really well, BTDR might still end up lagging just because it has to correct the move that it had here all the way from like eight bucks to like $25, right? It might have to do a little bit of correction here. So it's hard to say how long the correction is going to be and how low the correction is going to be. But those are your levels. Either previous high here, even the Bora support band is just right there, right? Like, you know, and it already has tested the tank in the kitchen over here. So there's also another potential for it to just kind of hold these levels here around the tank in the kitchen and just go up higher from here, right? That's always a possibility. But I just don't know. I think it has to maybe at least consolidate here for at least a few weeks, if not longer, to digest this move up here, because it's a pretty powerful move. And you also have the Bollinger Band on the monthly. It still needs time to continue to expand before price can go up higher, and you do have a little bit of the trees to look to it. So that's what I think about BTDR. I don't have any other thoughts on any of the other miners here. And I think I've just gone through a lot of stocks here, like 35 or 40 of them, including indexes and whatnot. So kind of proud of myself. A cat cannot pat himself on the back of his or her back, or else I would do it. I'm going to try, but I'm going to just run around in a circle trying to do it. Before I end, I'm just going to take a look at Bitcoin here real quick. I do think that the consolidation is probably over soon. And I do think that there might be something evil short term that could come. Because throughout history, whenever Bitcoin goes up a lot, it probably at least consolidates for at least a few weeks. Usually it consolidates for about 2 months. These kind of consolidation for like 7, 8 months is unusual for Bitcoin. Like these are a little bit unusual. I'm going to pull back history here a little bit. Before Bitcoin pushes up to the next level, usually there is a wick for liquidity grab that goes down a lot further than a lot of people think. Get everybody scared, and then it's going to hold support, and it's just going to keep going up higher, right? Over here, this is the liquidity grab candle over here. Over here, this is a liquidity grab candle over here, right? For this range over here, it didn't really have that liquidity grab candle over here, which is, again, a little bit strange here. Actually, it has a little bit of like a higher low here compared to there. So this whole consolidation range over here is a little bit strange. But I would, based on history, I'm going to show you like some of the other stuff here too, right? If you're going to consolidate sideways here, like during this uptrend here, it didn't really show you that you did have these like liquidity grab candles over here, but really for this for the bull cycle before that, right, the 2015, 2016, 2017 cycle, bull cycle before that, when it moves up, it has this like liquidity grab candle after it consolidates for about like 7 or 8 weeks. Like here, that's the candle that I was talking about. Here, you end up coming back down and grab liquidity down here below before it goes up higher after it consolidates for about like 7 or 8 weeks, right? Same thing, consolidate about 4 or 5 weeks here, liquidity grab and go up higher. I don't know if they can do this anymore. Like here, same thing, right? Sideways here for about 6, 7 months. Not 6, 7 months, 6, 7 weeks. Liquidity grab, go up higher. I don't know if they can do that anymore. They've been doing it on the way up, right? Liquidity grab, liquidity grab, liquidity grab. I don't know if they can just keep doing that because of like ETFs and because of like increased liquidity to Bitcoin, and because it's no longer just like an illiquid assets that's just being traded on exchanges. I don't know if they can do that anymore. Just have like these liquidity grab. It can. I don't know how low the candle is going to go if they end up doing that before pushing up higher. I just don't think the cycle is over yet. I just don't think the cycle is over yet. The the trend is still pretty decent. Now again, I was telling everybody I think it's going to go sideways here for a little while. End up going sideways here for a little while. It's not a bad thing. On again here, it also shows you the same resistance, but the numbers are a little bit different. I think I use 720 and 500 here. On the Gann chart here, it shows some pretty decent market symmetry where those angles seem to be extremely important. And it basically has just been flipping it from resistance here to support and back to support, wedging between the arc and the angle. It's still holding the angle. Could it end up having a big channel liquidity grab candle down here below next week or the week after, maybe? Does it have to have that liquidity grab candle down below to before it can go higher? I don't know the answer to that. What I'm saying is I think this consolidation here is probably getting done pretty soon. I think like we're at the end of the rope, and then they're going to try to play us. They're going to try to either like plummet it down or do whatever it takes to grab it from you. But institutions continue to accumulate Bitcoin. Like this cycle, I don't think it's over. Far from it, right? I just don't think the cycle is over yet. I still think that if you look at the monthly market symmetry here, ever since 2012, I think it's just been trying to push from arc to arc to arc. And after like backtest the arc down here below, it usually grabs up to the next arc. I think it's going to grab it up to the next arc here around like 600 or 700,000. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if there's enough liquidity for it to do that. There's certainly not enough Bitcoin on exchanges to keep on, just push the price of Bitcoin down. I think it's going to minimally get to like 200, 300,000 this cycle. A lot of people disagree with that. I don't know why that is. It's just not usual Bitcoin cycle behavior for the cycle to just end here. And yesterday I was showing you like the Pi cycle top indicator, the NVRVC score. I was showing you a lot of things. I just don't think it's ending yet. So because of that, I still think that the miners have a good chance to run. The other thing too, like if you're going to correlate this with miners, and again, they haven't really been correlating that well, because I think that they are subjected to a little bit different liquidity pool. But there is a chance where they could flush down the market, and they could flush down Bitcoin, and they can give like miners a little bit of final flush here before they're able to push everything higher. Because this is still a higher high, and they need to try to find a higher low, and I don't know how low the higher low is going to be. The fact that a lot of the miners are finding some pretty key support makes me think that the liquidity grab wick may not happen, but it could. And if it does, just be prepared for that. But I don't think the cycle's over, and I'm going to put my money on that. And if I end up losing, I end up losing, and I don't want you guys to lose money based on what I say. I also don't want you guys to make money based on what I say either. I want you to just look at all the available evidence that you're looking at, and you just compare your notes with mine, and you make your decision, and you decide what you want to do. I'm just telling you what I'm doing. Even if you're a member, I don't really want to tell you what to do. I just want to tell you what I think. Anyway, it's getting close to the 2.5 hour mark. I'm going to take a break here for good for the night, and you guys continue to enjoy your Saturday or Sunday morning, should that be the case. Thank you for sticking around. I know that the last couple of months has not been kind, and the sentiment indicator shows it. I know for a fact that sentiment is not good because of a lot of the indicators that I'm also looking on X as well. So thank you for dropping by, DK, Sam, Henry, HD Mods, Nicholas, Low Gains, if BN, Jules, Margin Call, Matt Johnson, Rinsla, Mesa. Thank you all for being here, and take care. Bye.